I'm Nonhlakani Pamakwaza in Durban.
Wildfires continue to afflict parts of Europe, including the Iberian Peninsula, Greece and Balkan countries. Amid an ongoing heatwave, thousands of people have been evacuated and some roads have been closed. The BBC's Denny Aberhard has the details.
High temperatures and a drought mean much of Europe is facing an extreme fire risk. Mediterranean countries are bearing the brunt. In Spain, the emergency services and troops are battling dozens of blazes, including in the northwest. A volunteer firefighter in Leon was killed when two fronts suddenly joined. In Greece, homes in Patras are threatened. One volunteer has described doomsday-like scenes. Other fires are burning on the tourist islands of Zakynthos and Chios.
Recapping the top story, Jacqueline Apollos, Stefano van Ryn and Kelly Smith have been refused leave to appeal by the High Court in Cape Town. I am Wanda Lambana for SFM News Headlines at 3:30.
And making headlines in your sports this hour, new FNB Stadium pitch to return to standard in September, and Bosch penalised for ICC Code of Conduct breach. I'll have more on this and other sports stories at 3:30.
This year, the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival presents 3 unforgettable days deep in the art and heart of jazz. From the 26th, 27th and 28th of September, Umu Sankare, Abapemu, Jasmia Horn, Silent Law and the Noisemakers, Najbonk Trio, Michelle Ndingio-Jello, Valencini, Gabby Mutuba and over 50 world-class acts will be ready to welcome you and yours to 4 magnificent stages of the Sandton Convention Center. Take me there. Buy your tickets at Ticketmaster now.
Outsurance made it possible for us to travel more with the money that we save. 725. This is really real.
You are the biggest saver we've ever had.
2,794 Rand a month. It was the easiest switch ever. Get real.
How is it that Outsurance provided the solution for you?
918 Rand is what I'm saving.
Incredible.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands.
Just phone Outsurance, get a quote and see what they can offer you. If you don't save that 321 like I did, you might say get a 500 or $1,000 back. Service and savings, you'll always get something out.
What was the real deal they could offer you?
870.
That's amazing. What brought you and Outsurance together?
718 Rand. I end up saving.
They gave you the real deal.
It literally is the real deal.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
SAFM celebrates its 89th birthday this month by giving listeners an exclusive opportunity to attend the prestigious Joy of Jazz taking place at the Sandton Convention Center from the 26th to the 28th of September 2025. To stand a chance to win these sought-after tickets, simply SMS SAFM 89 followed by your name to 41391 and stay tuned to SAFM as we could be calling you. SAFM is the official media partner for the Dipala stage at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. Entries open from the 7th of August and close on the 31st of August 2025. Winners will be randomly selected and called from the 1st of September 2025. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. T's and C's apply. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
You know what? You know the world is a strange world when things that are not so obvious to you is very normal to somebody else. And I say that because I'm looking at a post that says worldwide calls for President Trump to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And it comes from the Prime Minister. This is in support of Trump getting the Nobel Peace Prize. This is from the Prime Minister of Armenia, the President of Azerbaijan, the Prime Minister of Cambodia, the President of Gabon, the Prime Minister of Israel, the government of Pakistan, and the foreign minister of Rwanda. So there we are. Donald Trump effectively now being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, this at a time when once again there's been big issues in terms of how South Africa as a country is being perceived. And we'll talk about that, where an executive summary to the US report on South Africa reads, the human rights situation in South Africa significantly worsened during the year with the signing of the expropriation bill on December the 20th. South Africa took a substantially worrying step towards land expropriation of Afrikaners and further abuses against racial minorities in the country. Well, we'll talk about that. My name's Ashraf Garda. This is the National Pulse. Goodness, that should get your pulses racing, both things. Once again, further confirmation from the USA about South Africa's position and its relationship specifically with the Afrikaner community. And at the same time, confirmation that Donald Trump has now got some worldwide support to push for what he's always coveted, which is the Nobel Peace Prize. So you can connect 086 000 2032 live to call in, and then WhatsApp 30 seconds, please, if you're sending a voice note, 0614 104 107. Text messages to that same number, welcome. And you can tweet using the hashtag The National Pulse. How about telling me where you are? Tweet it out. Where are you listening in from right now? Let's, however, pick up on that story of how South Africa is perceived once again with Professor David Monyai, who's the director of the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg. Prof. Monyai, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you and the listeners. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Does this get your pulses racing? A lot has happened about South Africa. Is this a confirmation of what we know, or again a further endorsement, and therefore should get our pulses racing?
So all of the above. I think this comes as no surprise. We have been expecting this, and more worse things are coming without really making any alarm kind of statements. I think we have to understand all these things at the backdrop of a number of changings that are taking place at a global level. One is the whole change of the U.S. standing in the world as the superpower. Is on the decline, and there are a lot of challenges. There are new players, not just China. There's Russia and others in the Gulf states as well, including South Africa itself as part of BRICS. And therefore, this brings, in international relations, brings threats to the existing hegemon, which is the United States. And this is a natural reaction of U.S. and U.S. leadership, depending with which. So that view, a negative view of South Africa, has not. It's not just Trump. I think the mistake that people are making is to personalize this. Yes, Trump is taking it to the extreme, but generally, if you look what's happening in both houses, both the Democrats and Republicans, there has been uneasiness of South Africa's joining BRICS. South Africa should remain with the Western world as a domain, their own sphere of influence, and South Africa trying to take an independent position on global issues, whether to the Middle East or Ukraine war, or at a global level in terms of reforms. It at times provoke this kind of reaction. And we see the same thing with Brazil is being treated more or less the same now. All BRICS countries. So it's that part that the only way in which South Africa will be seen positively within the White House, if South Africa withdraws from BRICS, if South Africa stop the ICJ case, if South Africa stop relationship with China as well as with Russia, and just stick to United States and Western powers, then the noise stops.
So, interesting analysis you give. Does that suggest, because you mentioned all the the BRICS 5 countries, right? Does it suggest then, in fact, what we have is a rather hot Cold War against the BRICS nations, and who's driving it?
That's perfect. That's the best way of looking at it. And therefore, it doesn't really matter if we have best personality individuals We can deploy to United States. It doesn't matter what we do. I think what we're being asked is to negotiate our own foreign policy principles. I think what we have is normally called the progressive internationalism, that we are for one, peaceful resolution of conflicts globally, whether it's in Middle East or in Ukraine or on our own continent, and we want the reforms of United Nations. I think we need to look in terms of those positions, the high moral ground from President Mandela up to now. We've been living on that, which is enshrined in our constitution. So our foreign policy, whether we like it or not, it's part of law. That's what we stand for, from Freedom Charter up to the constitution. So much elements of Freedom Charter went into the constitution in the negotiation. So it's part of law in terms of advancing. So it doesn't really matter whether it's ANC or any other party. The outlook, orientation of South Africa globally, it's pro certain particular position of transformation of the world order, in which we are part to, and democratization of that. And therefore, those who are enjoying that power at the global level are not interested in that.
Okay.
So this is a pushback. And we're going to get more of that.
Now, you made the point earlier that it's not just Donald Trump. So often, we ask in a newsroom, it's not like just what was said, but who said it, right? So in this case here, this report has come from the U.S. State Department, the U.S. State Department Human Rights Country Report, right? So just so that we understand it and there's no ambiguity, so who is the U.S. State Department and what sort of clout do they have?
The U.S. State Department is like our own DERCO, Foreign Affairs. So it is the line function, the face facing the world. So United States look at the world through the lenses, through the department in terms of foreign policy. But the making of foreign policy within the United States, there's also division of power. There's the White House, and then you have your houses, the Senate and Congress, but at the end of the day, the president has more upper hand, and through the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Marco Rubio, and this in this instance, and therefore their reports are critical. But there are also other departments that you need to look at. They have the CIA, you also have your defense, you have others that contribute to the making of U.S. foreign policy. So I think we need to also to check what are pronouncement of the Trump administration foreign policy to the world and specifically to South Africa. So there has been another statement coming from the AFRICOM with regards to South Africa and Southern Africa, where AFRICOM has been given that independence to operate freely on the African continent.
Okay. Now
and the new focus is on looking at Angola, Namibia, and there's been a reference to South Africa with regards to cartels, drug cartels, and in light of what's happening domestically. So we should be able to knit the dots and see the kind of perception, negative perception, never ending, painting South Africa in a negative light globally. So it's quite bad for the country.
Now I see, I'm not surprised at this, that South Africa's Department of International Relations, DERCO, has rejected as inaccurate and deeply flawed that U.S. State Department report. So not a surprise there, but it does beg the question, in the light of the conversations we've been having in the last few weeks about the tariff increases and whether there's some sort of a new agreement. Clearly it's not happened. This just tells me if we think we are apart, we're even further apart than we think we are, which then gets me to think, what should South Africa do next? Do we just ignore this as just one of these things, or do we accept the fact that it actually has huge implications in terms of how brand South Africa is perceived globally?
Oh, yes. It is a huge implication. I think we in Southern Africa, and South Africa in particular, we are much more familiar with the Zimbabwe case. And God forbids that sanctions are applied to South Africa or to ANC leaders. Should that happen, which is worse of worse, we might indirectly facing a Zimbabwe scenario because the perception of individual sanction or in a country, markets do not understand, do not operate the way you and I do. So they will just say there's sanction against South Africa. So certain investors might think, wow, why do we need to go invest in South Africa? So I think it's dangerous for the country in terms of what we are dealing with, unemployment, inequality, and poverty. And it's unfair for US to do that. And this is deliberate. It's done deliberately. They know the damage it will cause.
The big question
on the markets.
Well, the big question is, what actually do we do next? We'll get an answer from you, Prof. David Monyai, right after this.
September 5 is Casual Day. Time to get your Casual Day sticker and gear in support of persons with disabilities. Looking beyond the label, your contribution makes a tangible impact. Visit www.ncpd.org.za. Many thanks from the National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities.
This is an SABC-supported initiative.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All, we honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So, a latest report from the US State Department effectively damning South Africa once again around the issues of human rights abuses and all issues that's been raised by the Americans, by Trump, and by extension, the White House in the last few months, confirmed once again with this latest report. Prof. David Monyai with us now. You can connect. I'll take your calls imminently. How to call in? Here's the number. Save it. 086 000 2032. And then you have the option to WhatsApp a voice note, 0614 104 107, or to text us on that same number. And you can tweet right away as well. Hashtag The National Pulse, tag SAFM Radio and myself. Right. Prof. Monyai, so here's the question. In the light of all that's been said, let's call it said above, what should and what can South Africa do about it?
Well, there are a number of things that South Africa can do. I think the biggest work, I hear a lot of people say we need to appoint an ambassador, we need to have the envoys, we need a number of things that reaching out, going to White House. Yeah, these things are quite important, but I think the greatest job is to rally South Africans through dialogue, like the national dialogue that is being suggested, to really strengthen the South Africa one narrative. This idea of having AfriForum, DA, or others, anyone who wants to go outside bad-mouthing the country, we're in this together. With the tariffs, they don't affect only blacks; it affects white. It affects everyone. Every South African will be affected. So I think we need to rally together the South Africa narrative. Outside, we might have our own differences at home, but when it comes at the foreign policy, Americans do the same. They don't. It doesn't matter how much they disagree at home, but when at a global level, there's one American position. So I think we need to do that and finish South Africa's foreign policy globally. We need to agree and present that view through the government. Individuals are free to do that. So that's one. Number two. Yes, ambassador need to be appointed, but we need to go just beyond that. United States remains an important actor, the leading country in the world, and the damage of these reports and more, and action taken by United States is quite damaging. And therefore, we don't leave United States and say we choose someone else, China or Russia or anyone. No. I think what we need to continuously engage United States, but we need to also understand the United States domestically. We have other progressive forces within the United States to present our case, whether the African diaspora or other progressive movements within the United States, so that that view does not strengthen within the U.S., so that there might be change. While we're doing so, let us reach out. I was so happy listening to news yesterday, the Pakistan-South Africa trade arrangement to go beyond the 400 million. I think we need to expand our trade, not just with Pakistan, with India, with China, and go to other markets that we're not familiar with, your Philippines, Kazakhstan. I think we need to reach in other parts of the world and Latin America so that we're not too dependent on the United States. We want to continue trade with the United States, but I think we need to lessen our dependence on the United States.
Can we say in conclusion, and this is the point, that for obvious reasons, it's important to continue trading with the USA and to enhance that trade for the reasons that we all know. But is it accurate to say that we actually, at this point in time, trying to force ourselves into a broken relationship?
It's going there as it stands. I do not think under President Trump we can ever convince him that, and they know anyway, whether the human rights, the Afrikaner killings and all lies that are being spread in the United States, they won't stop under this administration. So it doesn't matter what we do or say, but we need to find other alternatives so that Europe fully understand, Latin America, Asia fully understand that this report makes no sense, and South Africa is not what US is saying. That they're violation.
Well, let's
based on what they see.
All right, let's leave it at that. Professor David Monyae, I really appreciate your time here, and thank you for those insights. It gets me thinking once again that we are, when you're on social media, you're being targeted by a series of bots. You can't even debate with them. That is my sense of South Africa versus the USA right now. So thanks for your time, Professor David Monyae. What we have now is time to talk to you. WhatsApp, live calls. Let's hear you out because you're on the pulse.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
So here's one, Ashraf. Donald Trump is going to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Why? Because any country that does not endorse him will get more tariffs. So everyone has to kiss his what from Tabang in Van der Bijl Park. Okay. Michael in Gqeberha, you're live. Go for it.
Ashraf, I don't think that's the case, that anyone who does not support President Trump getting the Peace Prize will suffer or anything like that. President Trump deserves the Peace Prize. I mean, let's be honest and not be caught up in the noise of the mainstream media. Donald Trump has never invaded one country ever since he became president. Not one. He has not caused any devastation in any country outside of the U.S. And if you have a person like Obama, who invaded Syria, Somalia, and so on, and Clinton, and all these guys received the Nobel Prize, then it goes without saying that Donald Trump is the number one candidate for it.
Well, then don't you think the value of the Peace Prize has been lowered? I mean, you're supportive of him, meaning that he may not have invaded another country, but he has really influenced and destabilized one country called South Africa, for example. He's also supported the Israeli offensive in Gaza and has suggested annexing many other countries too.
How did he destabilize South Africa? If I may ask that question, how did he?
Just work out the refugee story. I mean, doesn't that tell you something?
Yeah, but the refugee story. Are you saying that he's the one who came up with the refugee story, or it is information that was relayed to him that he acted upon?
Is he accurate about it? Because I mean, he's on that basis he's condemned our country. He has.
He's done it on the basis of information that was given to him.
Okay.
So we must not then say that he's the one who initiated it. He never initiated it.
So if he doesn't initiate it, but he accepts it, and then takes action based upon what he accepts, he should still get the Nobel Peace Prize. Michael, we're going to have to leave it at that. Michael in Gqeberha, thanks for that. We need to get to the news headlines. I suspect there'll be lots more comments on the Donald Trump Peace Prize and, once again, the U.S. State Department's attack, really, on South Africa. 3:30. Here's the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, Judge Nathan Erasmus has denied the leave to appeal application by 3 people convicted in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and trafficking matter. Shaquina Polis, Tavino van Rijn and the child's mother, Kelly Smith, are serving life sentences on charges of human trafficking and 10 years for kidnapping. King Mswati III of Eswatini says it is important to start climate-resilient investment in water projects as the continent is one of those worst affected by climate change. And supporters of the Palestinians have gathered outside St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town to protest against the killing of journalists in Gaza. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview, slow moving on the link to the N12 east at Kiluli's interchange. The M1 southbound in Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown interchange, and the N1 northbound in Midrand has ramp closure reported, so no access to Allendale Road due to a truck crash, and that's causing some serious delays. In KZN, the N3 southbound in Pietermaritzburg has a crash reported after Sanctuary Road. The N3 westbound, a stationary vehicle before Cliffdale, and the R34 Nkwanazi Street is where a tanker crash is reported in that central Mpangeni area, so expect delays and diversions. In Cape Town, the M3 both ways, slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound, slow moving towards Hospital Bend, and the N1 outbound, slow moving on Plattekloof Hill. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
You know that phrase to me about, are you on the money? Well, what about the FNB football stadium or the FNB stadium? They're not on the money at the moment.
Well, I'll tell you a bit more about it. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Stadium Management South Africa CEO Bertie Grobler says that he's confident the pitch at FNB Stadium will be in a more playable condition tonight, but with some room for improvement ahead of tonight's Betway Premiership fixture between Kaizer Chiefs and Polokwane City at the 2010 FIFA World Cup final venue. Grobler shared an update on what to expect tonight.
It deserves no explanation that at the end of last season we all saw that the pitch was not up to the normal standard of the FNB pitch. With our pitch maintenance company Sport Turf, we then got in international experts on the hybrid pitch model to come and assess and recommend and advise us. As I said earlier, the plan all along was to replace the pitch at the end of the 2006 season. But the recommendations we received is that it will not last a following season. So we sat down with the City of Johannesburg and we discussed the commercials, and then we instructed the company to proceed with the refurbishment of the pitch.
Meanwhile, Marumo Gallants shot to the top of the Betway Premiership table with a 2-1 win over Orlando Pirates last night as they kept a 100% record in the league after 2 games, and coach Alexandra Lafitte credited their mental strength for their ability to compete until the final whistle.
It's a good performance, good result. It's a 2-game. We score in 90 minutes. I find it's good for the mentality, the mindset. I work hard for that. I think for the future is important to again develop when you have the ball, the moment. But no, I think it's a good start.
I mean, Ashraf, just looking at some of these games from the start of the Betway Premiership, obviously it's very early. However, it's anything to go by. It seems like we are in for an interesting season.
But maybe you just made the point. It is very early days.
Very early.
And probably is not anything to go by because it's that early, right?
Yeah,
but I think after 5 games, you get a sense of it.
Mm.
Yeah. Then we'll see.
I mean, fans are already complaining. But anyway, elsewhere, Barcelona coach Hansi Flick says that he's accepted this season his team need to improve defensively, with teenager Lamine Yamal and Rafinha shining in attack. The Catalan Giants proved an irresistible force as they claimed a domestic treble. However, the German coach's high-pressing defensive line sometimes left Barcelona high and dry at the back, even as it was made for frequently gripping end-to-end matches. In rugby, Springbok defence coach Jerry Flannery believes that this year's Rugby Championship will be more competitive than last year, with Joe Schmidt having settled into his role since taking over the reins from Eddie Jones last year. The Wallabies are believed to be on the up since their last meeting with the Boks a year ago, and Flannery believes that they will meet a more formidable Australian outfit this time around, along with the usual strong New Zealand and Argentina side.
I think it's a phenomenal competition because you look back on last year, and I think that Argentina were like the dark horses that came out of nowhere and shocked New Zealand, and they beat us as well. So I think there's no weak team in the championship. That is it, and I suppose last year, if I was to look at it objectively now, the fact that Joe Schmidt had only just taken over after the World Cup meant that the Wallabies probably started slowly, and we benefited from that because we played them early in the championship. I don't think that's going to be the case now. So, but we want to play the best teams when they're at their best. You don't want to be, with all due respect to Georgia and the Barbarians, we want to be playing the best teams in the world because that's how you get better.
Meanwhile, James O'Connor is set to return to the Wallabies starting lineup for the clash with the Springboks at Ellis Park. O'Connor last played for Australia in 2022, but his experience and game management appear to have swayed Schmidt for the season opener in Johannesburg, and Australia is expected to name their match 23 tomorrow. In tennis, second seed Carlos Alcaraz beat Hamad Majedovic 6-4 and 6-4 to move into the last 16 of the Cincinnati Masters. It was a more straightforward win than the scoreline suggested against the highly rated Serbian. Alcaraz will next face Luca Nardi in the next round, 1 a.m. South African time. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Absolutely. Looking forward to talking to you about that and a whole lot more, isn't it? Yeah.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Last year's finalists, Stellies, are on a mission to graduate to this year's final, while Babina Nuku want to do the talking on the battlefield. This is the MTN 8 First Leg semi-final. Don't miss out on Stellenbosch FC versus Sekhukhune United on Saturday, 16 August at 5:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, there's developments regarding Russia and Ukraine with Donald Trump in the middle of all of that, which we'll pick up in a moment, and feel free to connect with your comments regarding the issues we've already discussed, Russia, Ukraine, but also South Africa, USA, right? Right, let's get some of your thoughts in the meantime.
Ashraf, good afternoon, man. Flores from the beautiful Western Cape. Ashraf, it's clear that the U.S. government will not succumb to us trying to negotiate a better tariff deal. As long as the ANC and some ANC leaders are still part of this government, the U.S. is not going to bend over. I think farmers, especially here in the Western Cape, should go out and seek viable and feasible markets for themselves. That's the only way. Have a good job. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you for that. Florence always talks about the beautiful Western Cape. You are the Minister of Tourism in the Western Cape. You know that, right, Florence? Right, here's another.
Hi Ashraf, it's Todd, making my way from Cape Town to Johannesburg. Just with regards to Donald Trump, no, I don't think he should get the Nobel Peace Prize, not because of her personality, because I think there are more deserving people, much like de Klerk shouldn't have got the Nobel Peace Prize, but that's another conversation for another day. But I think, a lot of people have put emphasis on the farm killings and that we're spreading lies, the whites are spreading lies in America, whatever the reason. One of the main issues that we're not being told by the government is America doesn't like our foreign aid policies. That South Africa supports Palestine, that South Africa supports Iran, and that now South Africa has joined BRICS. Those are a lot more detrimental to our relationship with America than just farm murders and land expropriation. I think those are deliberately being ignored.
But I hear what you're saying, George. I don't think we're not being told. I think we know that already. It's been said. As far as joining BRICS is concerned, we've been with BRICS for a long time already. It's not like it's last week's story. Just making a point. All right, let's get to a call now. Shaka in Bloemfontein. Hello.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, how's it, man?
No, fine. Ashraf, I agree with the first speaker who just spoke. Look, when America makes a decision, even if it's a lie, if they repeat it many times, they just act according to a lie. Look at the weapons of mass destruction. They kept hammering on weapons of mass destruction. They knew there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, but they just kept hammering on it and then believe in an illusion and act on an illusion. That the whole nation goes and people die for a big lie. So this thing of South Africa that, it's murdering white people and so on and so on. It's, like I say, it's a ruse. The real thing is that our foreign policy is friendly towards Iran and of course the case that we pursued with Israel in the International Court of Justice. The whole thing is that Israel is going to be found. There's no way that Israel will not be found guilty of genocide, and then by association, America will be found to be an accessory to the effect of genocide. It's embarrassing. Okay, America doesn't care. It has made so many genocides before. It doesn't really care. But at the same time, it wants to maintain a clean image. You can see that Trump wants to maintain a clean image. One speaker was saying that, Trump has not invaded any country. Trump is very clever. He's fighting proxy wars. In Ukraine, he was talking peace and at the same time supplying weapons to mercenaries to invade Russia. He was also supplying the being in charge of espionage.
All right, I think you've made your point. I think, Shaka, I get that. The question is really, how does South Africa respond to this? Because if what you're saying is correct, and many may concur, then we are effectively sitting ducks to that issue. Let's get to another call. We go to Bloemfontein this time. Dario, go for it. Hello, Dario. Dario, you live? Go for it.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Well, I think, by association, I think that if one has to give a Nobel Peace Prize to Trump, and as well give it to Netanyahu. I don't know what you think.
Sorry, did you say just repeat that, by association?
Now, I'm saying, but by association with Trump and Netanyahu, right? Because he's defending anything that is happening there in Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that, if you want to give a Nobel Peace Prize to Trump, might as well give it to Netanyahu. So at least, the joke is complete.
Well, there you are. You've got a job as a stand-up comedian, Dario, and you know that. Thanks for that comment or that thought from you. In fact, we'll chat to Tebe Kalafeng just now, not quite now, about celebrating, women's brands, which is really interesting. But for now, let's get to that Ukraine-Russia ongoing issue. So the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and the European leaders are, due to hold urgent talks with the American President Donald Trump in the attempt to persuade him to defend Kiev's interests at the bilateral summit, which is scheduled for Friday in Alaska with the Russian leader Vladimir Putin. So what exactly is the purpose of the summit? And what is this about trying to persuade him to do what? With me is Peter Zalmayev. We've chatted to him before. He's the director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative. Peter, as always, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Pleasure to be your guest.
Thank you. So, I'm not too sure which one is more significant. The fact that it's a summit taking place, or a bilateral summit, or an attempt by Zelensky and others to try and persuade Trump otherwise, in terms of, give us context there.
Yes, indeed, both the Ukrainian president, the Ukrainians and their European allies are up in arms about this coming meeting. We've seen this show before when Donald Trump meets with Vladimir Putin, a much more savvy, experienced, devilishly, cunning politician, player, such as the summit in Helsinki, if you remember, in 2017, where single-handedly, within an hour of their meeting, Vladimir Putin was able to persuade Donald Trump that Russians never interfered in American elections, and right there, Donald Trump was happy to broadcast that. And so, with that in mind, obviously, we're very concerned that when Donald Trump talks about land swaps for peace, and what exactly is he talking about, right? A couple of visits by Witkoff, his emissary, and his Trump's phone calls with Trump do not a diplomacy make, right? If you go back in history to Dayton Peace Agreement, when the Balkans, right, the Korea War and how it ended, and the negotiations between Israel and Palestine in Camp David, you remember, mediated by Bill Clinton. They required hundreds of meetings and hundreds of people sitting with a magnifying glass, poring over maps. These are very complicated issues. And when you ask me what is behind it, I think that Donald Trump is rushing into this quite impulsively. He wants that peace prize that I've talked about before on your show. And he's always trying to deflect attention from his crisis at home, including the Jeffrey Epstein files. I mean, I probably, it's not too speculative to think that also plays a role, and obviously he considers Vladimir Putin as someone who can do business with and open up, trade relations with. He may be an ideological ally of Donald Trump. There's many things that they have in common, etc. So in all of this, it seems that I think Ukraine is completely justified in feeling just a little bit concerned about what will come out of this.
Well, I mean, part of that is the Ukrainian President Zelensky making reference to what is called Eastern Ukrainian land. And interesting, you made the point about, peace for Donald Trump, Nobel Peace Prize. But really what's at stake here is a piece of land. And Zelensky is saying, and I quote, that the Donbas region would open the door for Russian President Putin to start a third war in the Ukraine. Therefore, he cannot abandon that region. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, obviously, what Putin wants is Ukraine to leave voluntarily from the part of the Donbass, which is actually my home area where I grew up and was born, voluntarily. And Ukraine still controls, I would say, 30% is the Donbass. I mean, leaving voluntarily that area that has major industrial towns, okay? I mean, that is something else. And when he talks about how the Ukrainian constitution does not allow for that, and Donald Trump then is openly dismissive, like, what constitution? Who cares about it? If you look at this, it's another demonstration of how clever, how devilishly clever Putin is being about this, because let's say that Ukraine decides to sign off on the, handing over this land, right? What that will cause armed riots on the streets of all these men and women who've been fighting in the military, who've lost their comrades in this war. And the question they will raise is, why did we fight if we're just so shamefully withdrawing and capitulating? There will be another Maidan, and Zelensky may be thrown out of office, or maybe, hard and feathered on the streets of Kyiv. And let's say if the Ukraine does not agree to that, then Putin will make sure that Ukraine is made out to look like the intransigent party, and he will surely see Donald. Ukraine does not want peace. So it's a certain ambush that we're walking into.
Sure. Well, I mean, again, Zelensky is saying, and I'm quoting, "I am not going to surrender my country because I have no right to do so. If we leave Donbass today, our fortifications, our terrain, the heights we control, we will clearly open a bridgehead for the preparation of a Russian offensive." So just a quick answer on this. Therefore, what card can Zelensky play? What card can Putin play? What card can Trump play? You've got a minute to answer all three.
Yeah, well, I think Trump's best card is to really realize that he's got cards, that Russian economy is not doing so well, and Putin is always playing quite good at, pumping his chest and, making him out bigger than he is, pretending like there's no problems. He's confident that, they'll continue rolling over the Ukrainian territory, capturing more, etc. That's a game he's playing, and he's a consummate, actor of this game. And Trump needs to understand that not all is well with Russia and its economy. So America has cards. America has to bring some conditionality on the table and not just be seen as yielding to Putin. Putin has a lot of cards, obviously, as I've just mentioned, and he's confident that he will be, in fact, gaining more territory. His major card is China's backing. He feels that China has his back, and as long as that's the case, he can continue playing this out. And he feels like he can outlast Ukraine and its allies, and Zelensky's major card is European allies now. The Europeans are backing us. They know that Ukraine is the last sort of, fortress that keeps Russia from, coming up to Europe's border and start threatening European Union itself. They know that they need to continue arming Ukraine because otherwise they'll have to deal with Russia one-on-one.
Well, big question talking about cards is who will deal that card. Appreciate your time, Peter Zalmayev, Director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative, talking Russia, talking Ukraine, and somehow in the middle of all of that, talking Donald Trump too. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
FlySafe's Business Booster is back to help elevate and celebrate small local businesses. Enter now at flysafe.co.za. Tell us about your business, and you could be one of 6 standout enterprises to win 10 return business class flights plus brand exposure across FlySafe's various platforms. Whether you're making, creating, or innovating, we're here to help your business not just take off, but skyrocket. FlySafe, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
All right, so from talking about Donald Trump in South Africa to Donald Trump and Ukraine, Russia, let's talk about Thebe Kgalafeng and celebrating, well, as part of Women's Day or Women's Month, an important trailblazing, really, honoring, in this case here, of not just any brands, which Thebe is famous for, but certainly women-founded brands. So Thebe Kgalafeng, chairperson of Brand Africa. Good to connect with you. It's been a while, Thebe. Hi.
It's been a while, but I can promise you we have not been sleeping. I'm very good, Ashraf, and how are you?
Yeah, very good. I have to just tell you, by the way, talking about women-owned brands, I had lunch today with Zahira Mati, and of course you came up in that conversation about just women in South Africa and around the world, effectively championing South Africa.
She's a great champion of Africa, great champion of South Africa. She doesn't live here, but she's so present here. But she's never forgotten where she comes from. She's a great ambassador for this country and this continent. I love Zahira.
Absolutely. And I think that's a nice segue in terms of where you are. So you want to play up women, as in Women's Month, but linking it to something that you feel strongly about and what you are known for, which is brands, right? So what did you do?
So what we did, remember in June 13 this year, we announced the most admired brands in Africa. But I withheld the results for women because I didn't want women's results to be lost in the bigger results. So for 9 August, as you know, with commemoration of the Women's March, 20,000 women marching, the resilience of women, I thought that's the perfect time for us to celebrate women as well. So what we then did, we went to the results and then extracted those great woman-owned and sometimes woman-led brands, but most importantly is woman-founded brands. That's what we wanted to celebrate.
Okay, so what did you come up with?
Or we come up with Era by DJ Zintle. Isn't it amazing? I mean, she's a DJ, but she's segued into building this phenomenal brand that I can find around the country, and perhaps will grow beyond the continent with time. And then we've got B. Mashilo, and comes from a fashion space. Also another phenomenal brand she's showcasing all over the world. And then you've got Portia M in the beauty space. And another phenomenal woman. She's in 2,000 stores around the continent. So we've highlighted the 3 exceptional women-founded brands in South Africa.
It's an interesting take you have, because, often when it comes to Women's Day and Women's Month, the natural link-up is what happened on that hugely significant march in the 1950s. So that's understandable. And so much, therefore, that comes out of that is the issues of struggle, right? You've actually chosen to say, hold it, let's use this month, in fact, to promote achievement of women in business. And that's really what the women brands are about, right? Why do you think that was that important?
Well, I think it's important because if you think about it, without women, we're nothing. Women are the backbone of society. Women are the backbone of our progress. Women are the nurturers, but also we tend to forget that a lot of particularly the informal businesses, are run by women. So it is actually exceptional to see the women who've moved from the informal to the front, to the high street, and say we are as equally good in front. Because the reason some of them do informal is because traditionally they'll be at home, they'll have the time in between children and looking after the homes. They'll start, if you call, side hustles. But now they're moving beyond side hustles. And if you look at South Africa, for example, I think it's about 21.7% of the businesses are women-owned in South Africa, which compares very fairly with the 22% global average. So they're pretty much around the average in the world. But then having said so, women account for 52% of the population. So they should really be accounting for half the businesses.
Interesting, and this is another conversation I've often had. We talk about buying local, and I've often argued about there's nothing wrong in buying local for all the right reasons. But ultimately, the success of a brand is when you build local, but you're actually able to sell global. And that just shows you how well you can actually amplify and multiply what you do. And that brings attention to your home country. I mean, do you see that with these women-owned brands that you refer to?
Well, let's look at Portia M as an example. At many stages, she has been the number one beauty brand in the Clicks stable. That gives you an idea of just how phenomenal her brand is. And remember, this is a woman who founded a brand post her own problems after giving birth. And she said, can I find a product that will help me to get rid of these? So in other words, we always, when people ask you, how do you start a brand? I always say, solve a problem. And Portia solved the problem. And so that's what we're beginning to see now, that women are building these phenomenal brands which are solving problems. And they are not just informal, and they are competing as equally, and their products are able to travel beyond borders. The fact that she's in 2,000 outlets around the continent, and she's in more than South Africa, tells you that we what I call African imagination and global excellence.
Yeah,
that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, I'm thinking as we conclude here, people listening in and certainly impressed and admired by the names you just mentioned are probably saying, well, how do I grow my brand? And we certainly need many people like that. So here's the thing, in 1 minute, what's your Tebe Kalafeng masterclass about how do you grow a brand?
Well, I think first and foremost important is find a niche in society and solve that problem. That's the first thing. Second, you must be excellent in how you deliver that product. But third and most important, you must be different. You can't be a me too like everybody else. So the great brands are very clear in the solution I'm providing and how different is it from everybody else. Not how much better, how different is it from everybody. And then how you deliver it must be exceptional. And fourth and final, women are great in organizing in organizing themselves and others. It's also how do you leverage your network to deliver the solution.
Oh, I'll tell you what, that's like a 30-second masterclass, and I'm hoping people make notes, but if they haven't, they need to listen to the podcast and then use that as a conversation piece over supper tonight. Just tell me last thing, so now that these names are, announced, right, how do you then, what happens next to them? I mean, they're in established businesses, but the point I want to make is, what do you then do to amplify their success further? You as Brand Africa. Yeah.
So what we've done at Brand Africa is we've done a couple of things. One is we've created awareness. We've created awareness over the last 15 years. There were products in our midst, but there wasn't a high level awareness that we've created about made in Africa brands. And by elevating their visibility as we're doing now, we are showing the rest of the continent and South Africa in particular, because this is South Africa, that we are capable of delivering world-class excellence solution. And our role at this point is to drive that narrative, to inspire, to highlight, to create awareness, and to inspire others. And there's a girl out there growing up today, and who knows that their role is more than just being a wife. Their role is more than just being a secretary or even an executive. That they can actually start something as big and be as competitive as the men in the world. Wow. And that's what these brands are doing, and that's why we do them.
And that's why you're doing it and doing it well. I would say Africa's brand champion in this case here, Thebe Kalafeng. Much appreciate your time and great on amplifying those three women in particular, women-owned brands. Thebe, I'm sure we'll chat soon as we talk winners and winning in our country and around the continent. Let's get to the news now. In fact, let me just tell you this. AfriForum coming up after the news. Here's Ondela now with the news just after 4.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, trio refused leave to appeal in Jocelyn case and intense Israeli strikes in parts of Gaza City. For SAFM News, I am Ondela and a very good afternoon. Judge Nathan Erasmus has denied a leave to appeal application by 3 people in the High Court in Cape Town convicted in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and trafficking matter. Shaquina Paulus, Stephen van Ryn and the child's mother, Kelly Smith, are serving life sentences on charges of human trafficking and 10 years for kidnapping. In handing down his judgment, Erasmus said there was no reasonable prospect for success if the matter was taken on appeal. Section 204 witness Laurentia Lombard has also been granted indemnity from persecution. A community leader at the Overcome Heights informal settlement in Muizenberg in Cape Town says the frequent shootings in the area recently are linked to gang rivalry. 4 people aged between 20 and 37 were shot dead in shacks earlier this morning. Ward Councillor Mandy Ma.
We've got gang infighting. We have one gang, the Junkie Funky gang, and what's happened is one of them has gotten out of prison and they're actually trying to form another gang. So we have a lot of it is concentrated in Overcome Heights. We did have shooting in Seawinds yesterday, and there's also a lot of shooting going on in Steenberg. So it is spilling over into the surrounding areas, unfortunately.
King Mswati III of Eswatini says it is important to start climate-resilient investment in water projects as the continent is one of those worst affected by climate change. Mswati was one of the African heads of state that attended the inaugural African Union Water Investment Summit in Cape Town. He says while they are constructing more dams, investment is needed for agricultural dams in his country. Mswati says climate change has had harsh effects on the continent.
This situation is expected to get worse due to the impacts of climate change as Africa is warming much faster, which has tremendous implications on the rainfall patterns. We need to encourage the investment in water preservation projects for our future generations.
Supporters of the Palestinians have gathered outside St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town to protest against the killing of journalists in Gaza. The group says Israel is deliberately targeting networks critical of its occupation of Palestine and has called on the media worldwide to report accurately and without fear or favor. Gift of the Givers founder Dr. Imtiaz Soliman.
We're calling on the media throughout the world to start challenging governments to make a decisive stand inside Gaza. We're calling on media to ask to enforce the United Nations to send troops in the ground in Gaza, like what was done in Bosnia. Safe havens were created, people were protected, the doors were open. Neighboring countries need to open the doors so aid can go in unlimited, unconditionally. Whilst I'm disgusted with governments around the world I'm even more disgusted with the Arab and Islamic world. The teachings are very clear. Stand with people who are unjustly treated, who are oppressed, who are bleeding or hungry.
Meanwhile, witnesses say there have been intense Israeli strikes in Gaza, particularly in parts of Gaza City. The Hamas-run health ministry says at least 123 Palestinians were killed yesterday and another 8, including 3 children, died of starvation or malnutrition. The BBC's Yolanda Nell has the details.
Footage shows large explosions caused by Israeli strikes and demolitions in the Zaytun neighbourhood to the east of Gaza City. In a statement, the Israeli army said it was carrying out new operations there and that the Chief of Staff had now also approved the main framework of plans to widen its Gaza offensive. Israel announced its intention to conquer the entire Gaza Strip after indirect talks with Hamas on a ceasefire and hostage release deal broke down last month.
Recapping the top story, Judge Nathan Erasmus has denied leave to appeal application by the 3 convicted in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and trafficking matter. I'm Mondilambana for SFM News Alliance at 4:30.
Coming up in sports this hour, Bosch penalised for ICC Code of Conduct breach. Zwane warns title race could shift as Mamelodi Sundowns gets busy, and Scheffler and McElroy paired at BMW Championship. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview, slow moving on the link to the N12 East at Gilulis Interchange, and Winnie Mandela Drive in 4 ways, slow moving at Leslie Avenue. In KZN, the N3 southbound in Pietermaritzburg has a crash reported after Sanctuary Road, and the N3 westbound, a stationary truck at Key Ridge. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound slow moving towards Bunga Avenue and Stellenbosch Arterial Road eastbound in Kells River, slow moving at Nooiensfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out, because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, you know, we got news that Action SA is withdrawn from the national dialogue. They'll have some observers in some form, but effectively they're sort of stepping away. So we'll chat to them after 5 o'clock. Do listen out for that, right? As far as AfriForum is concerned, AfriForum as well as Solidarity, well, they've also withdrawn, we mentioned it yesterday, from that first convention of the National Dialogue. So why so? Let's find out from Kali Creel, the CEO of AfriForum. Kali, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
Yes, good day, Ashraf. Great speaking to you.
Okay, so let's get this right. You've withdrawn. That means at one stage you were a part of it. So why were you a part of it, and why did you feel the need to withdraw?
Yes, we already started discussions quite a time ago with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, and our movement's chairperson had discussions with them also with regard specifically the National Dialogue. And we must remember this dialogue was proposed by former President Thabo Mbeki. So we thought it was a good idea. We were looking forward to participate. But then what happened, unfortunately, the presidency simply hijacked or captured the whole process to the extent that you have the people that got to the fore with the idea, the Mbeki Foundation and the other foundations withdrawing. The fact is, what the presidents have done, the presidency then started dictating with regard to who the eminent person should be, who the chairperson should be. I spoke to one of the foundations that said their proposals for the eminent persons group was simply ignored. And the problem that we have a serious need for this dialogue because we have a crisis in the country. The crisis is because of years of misadministration as well as corruption and failed policies by the ANC-led government. So they are the reason for the crisis, and they cannot then try to prescribe what the solution should be. We need civil society to participate. If politicians want to dictate, they have parliament to speak. But this should have been a citizens-led program. So we hope that there would be a rethink in terms of this so that we can have a real dialogue that is not used by the ANC for an election campaign, but where we find solutions.
Okay, if you say it needs to be a citizen-led dialogue, then I hear what you're saying, but especially with regard to the eminent persons group, right? I mean, many of them are drawn from a whole wide cross-section of society, and they're very much leaders in their space. Why would one think that they would sign up and be lackeys to one political party simply to further that agenda of that party?
Yes, I must say I have respect for a number of people on that list, but we must remember the people are either prominent sports figures or artists, and people in those positions are not people that are going to get involved in hard discussions. That is not their role, even if they can. They want to unite the country as a whole, and they will not take on government with regard to the core issues. And therefore, we believe that you should rather have participants, people that differ, because, why this reconciliation has failed, because it's false symbolism. There needs to be serious hard discussions on issues, and that can only be done if there's an open agenda where civil society can put their issues on the table.
Now,
but of course, yes.
Yeah. Now, don't you think that, again, the eminent persons groups and others that will feed in to the National Convention at the weekend, starting Friday, in fact, and beyond, may say exactly that. That means by being on the field of play, to borrow a rugby analogy, they can play the game as opposed to being on the outside. And in playing the game, they can actually influence the way the game is going to be played rather than being on the outside. So they'll be in a better position than someone like yourself on the outside.
Well, I think one should ask the experience what the foundations had. They were in the middle of the playing field. They actually invented the game, if I can say it like that, and of the arrangements. And if people that are on the playing field, that plays a central role, say, well, this is not going to work, then one needs to take that seriously. And that is why we support what the foundations did. Hopefully, this is not the end of discussions in the country. There should be a rethink. But fortunately, there can be dialogues where the government is not involved. And AfriForum, we have been involved in local discussions with many communities, going into agreements, having joint projects. In Paris, for instance, there's a water crisis. The communities came together, discussed it, formed the organization Metsi Pompong. We have an agreement with the Barlong, Buseleka, the Amabele community with agricultural projects. So I don't think people should become despondent. We're just saying we don't need a political talk shop. But even though if we're unhappy, we can go ahead with dialogues in our communities and do practical projects. And we're going to go ahead with that, and hopefully there would be a change of direction with regard to the national dialogue.
Now, you mentioned those legacy foundations, including, the Desmond and Leah Tutu Foundation, Leah Tutu Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Steve Biko Foundation, F.W. de Klerk, and so on, right? But they, at this point in time, yes, they've voiced lots of concerns like yourself, but they've withdrawn from the opening week, the convention. They haven't actually withdrawn from the overall national dialogue. That's the first point. The second part you made, that, we need to come together but not include government. Now, if you don't include government, and, government is not the ANC, there's a GNU in place, that actually excludes lots of parties because they are governing together.
Yes, with regard to those 2 points, just the first one is our statement, and on our media conference, we also said we were withdrawing from the discussions this coming weekend. And of course, that still opens the door for future participation. So in that regard, our position is the same as the legacy foundations. Then with regard to the second issue, our position is not that government should not be involved. Of course, government is a role player, but government is not the only role player. And the crisis is because of failed policies by government. And we all need one another. We need civil society. We need business. And if you say we need all these role players, they should be able to participate in a discussion as equal partners. But the whole shift in momentum has now gone towards the government. This is no longer national dialogue, it's ANC monologue, and that is not what we want. Government should be there, but they should not dictate the agenda. They can do that in Parliament if they want.
Just to conclude, I mean, and I'm quoting the statement saying, our experience is that community dialogues can bear more fruit than a state dialogue, and discussions between communities yield more practical results. Now, I hear that, but in effect, that's been one of the stated objectives of the national dialogue already. They did say that it must filter down through to grassroots. That's why it will take as long as 9 months. It has to do that.
Yes, that's a brilliant idea that it should do that. But again, the same problem would be on grassroots level. If you're going to have politicians dictating, you will see these dialogues becoming election campaigns, because we are going to have an election in the country next year. And we must make sure that political parties, especially the ANC, don't use this to promote their own agenda. That's the question I ask for myself. Why would the president simply dictate, push out the people that have been arranging this with him? The only reason I can think of is to use this for political campaigning. And the last thing we need is on grassroots level, in the run-up to a municipal election, that it becomes a political party campaign. So that is why we are saying local communities should take charge. Politicians can be there, but no one should be able to dictate the agenda. And that is unfortunately what the presidency is doing at the moment.
Let's end with it, just to get another perspective of it. I mean, it's interesting we talk about their own agenda, right? You probably may have heard the latest US report, state report on South Africa. Now, some may say that, in fact, as you talk about the ANC and their own agenda, that, in fact, AfriForum itself has also driven its own agenda in pursuing your case and your constituency abroad.
Yes, no, there's nothing wrong with serving your constituency, and the government can also, of course, all the people of this country are their constituency. The ANC's constituency are the members. But if one goes to something as a national dialogue, if you have an agenda, then it's your fullest right, but then be open about it. Don't portray this as an open discussion, but then you ignore the people that are supposed to organize it with you. That is the core issue. Of course, the ANC can promote their agenda, but they're not going to promote it under the guise of a so-called national dialogue.
Okay, just lastly, I mean, what do you make of that statement coming from the USA? And again, regarding South Africa about human rights abuses, we've chatted often, but now in terms of the latest pronouncements, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think the problem we have, these issues has been African government before, and their reaction was simply to say every time this is the result of misinformation, and of course saying it was AfriForum. But we've said all along, this is not going to work. Just take serious what are the issues. The issue is, it is being chanted, kill the worm. The president does not condemn that. Farm murders are not priority crimes, even though gang violence, rhino poaching are all priority crimes. Address those issues, and then these kind of reports won't come to the fore. But unfortunately, the South African government's reaction now, again, was simple denialism. Let's address the issues. Otherwise, the relationship with the US is not going to be reset.
what about the relationship with South Africa, say between AfriForum and government? How will that be reset?
Yes, well, we have written numerous letters to the president with regard to the Expropriation Act, with regard to Kill the Boer, and he simply did not even answer our letters. When there were discussions with regard to the Bela Act, the president falsely claimed afterwards that he did not give a mandate for that. So we are all for finding South African solutions for South African problems, as the president says. But the problem is he says he wants those solutions, but he ignores our letters. But we will continue. We are open for discussions. We want the future for all the people of this country. But that's the same problem we have on these issues with the presidency, is the same problems with the national dialogue. It seems they are hell-bent on simply just going in a certain direction, and they don't want to speak to anybody else, and that is a serious problem.
Let's leave it at that. Kali Kriel, AfriForum CEO. Interesting thoughts from him, making the point that they're on the outside now, although they do concede that there's an urgent need to actually be talking nationwide. Any contradictions in that? Yes, no, maybe. You can think about it too. This is the National Pulse.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
SAFM celebrates its 89th birthday this month by giving listeners an exclusive opportunity to attend the prestigious Joy of Jazz taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre from the 26th to the 28th of September 2025. To stand a chance to win these sought-after tickets, simply SMS SAFM 89 followed by your name to 41391 and stay tuned to SAFM as we could be calling you. SAFM is the official media partner for the Dipala stage at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. Entries open from the 7th of August and close on the 31st of August 2025. Winners will be randomly selected and called from the 1st of September 2025. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. T's and C's apply. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So we're going to chat to Action SA after 5 o'clock on the same issue, the national dialogue, which is going to happen, I think, whether you like it or not. And perhaps a question to you. I mean, just think about this. So not about whether it's got merit, because we've spoken about it at length, okay? Let's just say, even if you're a critic, you get asked, you get invited to speak at and present at the national dialogue, nationally or even at community level, and you get asked to make one statement only, just one statement. What is that statement that you'd make? I really want to know. Call in live or WhatsApp us. In the meantime, let's talk about Germiston. It's an issue we touched on the other day about Germiston's Faro Park flats, right? So we spoke about evictions the other day. Then there was a fire, remember, the Home Affairs building. I understand these evictions have now continued. So as what is called the second round of evictions. Let's find out more about it with Councillor Khopelo Holo, the MMC for Human Settlements in the city of Ekurhuleni. Councillor Holo, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us for the National Pulse.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners of SAFM.
Okay, after the day of high drama a couple of days ago, this continues. Why?
It continues because yesterday we couldn't finish evicting everyone from Faro Park. We just managed to only evict about 80%. Then SAPSEF indicated to us that we should reschedule and to finish evicting the other platform, which is the reason why it's continuing.
Okay, I'll tell you what, let's just see if we can reconnect with our guest, because we're just losing that line terribly. I'll get Keith to try and sort it out again. In the meantime, some comments, and I really find this interesting, from Mason Dikela tweeting saying, which president in the world can allow a national dialogue to be done outside of his control, then he would cease to be a president. We can't allow this country to be ruled by foundations and NGOs. Never. Well, does he have a point? Let's get back to the MMC for Human Settlements in the city of Ekurhuleni. Sorry, MMC, we lost you very, very early on. So I asked you about why the need again, and you said, of course, you had to continue with the evictions. Tell me more.
Okay, Ashraf, sorry about that. We are continuing with the eviction, mainly because yesterday we couldn't finish with the evicting one of the blocks. Remember, we had to also deal with the tenants whom are compliant, and then it's about 50 of them. They had to remain behind. We're just dealing with the administrative issues, but also SAPS have indicated to us that they can only be able to be available today so that we continue and finish with the eviction.
Okay, there was, even yesterday there was huge, well, I won't say contradictions, but different views about, who are these people? Then these units they were living on, it's been sort of titled living in RDP units. Are they owned or they up for rental? I mean, give us the context to what actually has been the problem in the first place.
So Faro Park, together with other 4 complexes, it's part of the rental unit. It's a rental stock managed by the NTT Ekurhuleni Housing Company. It's meant to address a missing middle, as to call. These are the people who are earning above the threshold to qualify RDP houses, but also they are unable to secure the finance, home finances from the banks due to their income threshold. However, in this regard, the occupants have been occupying these flats for a very, very long time. And unfortunately, they just refuse to continue paying the city and the entity. That's why we had to approach courts and ensure that we get granted the eviction order.
And you did, you had an eviction order to do just that?
We did attain a eviction order on the 26th of June, and we just executed from yesterday.
All right. Now, one thing is the law, right, which you now have on your side. The other is the reality of dealing with human beings and the empathy around that. I mean, clearly this can't be the solution, can it?
Look, Ashraf, we've been dealing with this matter for a long time. We had several engagements with the community which have occupied these flats, and then we took each other from pillar to post to a point whereby we can't have any other solution, because we wanted to have a common ground and resolve this in a better manner. However, the community have just shown us that they are not willing to cooperate with the city, and so we had to approach courts and evict them.
Okay. Where is this all going to end? I mean, at the end of the day, you do want people to actually have a place to live rather than being on the streets. I mean, what's the win-win solution here?
Well, our responsibility, Ashraf, is to ensure that our people get adequate housing. That's our main responsibility. And if you can remember, we've got fully subsidized houses, which anyone who cannot afford or who have an income less than 3,500, they should utilize that method to apply for fully subsidized house. But with these tenants in question, Ashraf, these are the tenants who are working and they are earning very well. So they came to the entity, they've applied, they've produced a proof of income, and then they qualified on those bases that they are working and they've got a decent income. So we are saying to them, if you want to occupy this rental stock flats, of which they are designed to generate revenue for the city, and you refuse to pay, What about people who have been in the waiting list for as far as 1996, 1998, whom in their majority are SASSA beneficiaries? And also we've got unemployed individuals who are still dwelling in the backyards of their parents, as old as they are. Others are 30, 40 years. But they remain there patiently waiting for fully subsidized houses, of which we are working hard as a city to ensure that we are going to provide. But these ones, in the meantime, they have a living, they are making income, but they just choose to hijack our buildings. They just choose not to pay for water, not to pay for electricity, not even pay for the rentals, of which they've entered into a lease agreement with the city that they should pay on a monthly basis.
Okay, got that. Well, lots to consider coming out of that conversation with Councillor Khopelo Holo, the MMC for Human Settlements in the city of Ekurhuleni. Does the councillor have a point? Is the point justified that you can't allow people to effectively hijack buildings and there's a waiting list of people living behind, their parents' homes or yards, doing things and just waiting in line for a housing queue to join in when there's a huge crisis and a huge backlog around the houses? I wonder what is the win-win situation for you? Right, let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the Molopo Regional Court in Northwest has convicted and sentenced 24-year-old traditional healer Bongani Mafolela to 15 years imprisonment for 2 separate sexual offences. The ANC's Castro de Bruyn has been elected as the new mayor of the Beaufort West municipality in the central Karoo, and Sudan's Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan is reported to have met the U.S. Senior Advisor for Africa, Massad Boulos, in Switzerland to discuss a plan to end the civil war. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Gross.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Christina de Wit Avenue southbound in Pretoria is slow moving towards Eupheus Road, and Winnie Mandela Drive in Fourways slow moving at Leslie Avenue. In KZN, in Pietermaritzburg, the N3 westbound, a stationary truck reported before Market Road, and on the N3 southbound, a truck crash after Sanctuary Road has led to the road being closed. In Cape Town, Klipfontein Road eastbound in Sabran Park, slow moving towards Jan Smuts Drive, and Albert Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
Right, so we touched on the PSL and who's setting the waves in the early days of the Betway Premiership, but you got a cricket story to talk about now.
Yeah, South African all-rounder Corbin Bosch has been fined for breaching the ICC Code of Conduct during the second T20 International against Australia. Bosch was found guilty of making a provocative gesture after dismissing Ben Droeshuis in the 17th over. He received 1 demerit point on his record and has accepted the sanction, meaning there will be no formal hearing. In rugby, Springboks defence coach Jerry Flannery says that they've had to fine-tune some of their mistakes from the Italy, Georgia and Barbarians clashes. The Boks are gearing up to face Australia in the Rugby Championship opener at Ellis Park on Saturday.
Yeah, I think we weren't, none of us were pleased with how we performed in Italy 1, and we conceded a maul try in that game. We also conceded a maul try against Georgia, so that's something that teams pick up and they look to go after. So we've invested a lot of time into our maul defence, but I think there's always going to be something for you to work on, and I think we conceded 40 points across the 4 games if you include the Babas as well, but it was a little bit like this. We started well against the Babas, really poor against Italy 1, good against Italy 2, and then kind of a little bit in between with Georgia. So there's definitely a lot of scope for us to improve, and on the back of the level of intensity that the Australians have been playing, we've tried to replicate that with our training.
In football, Amazulu coach Arthur Zwane says that it's too early to predict who will challenge Mamelodi Sundowns for the Betway Premiership title this season, but the picture will become clearer when the fixture schedules tighten up. Lesotho fell 2-0 to the reigning champions at Loftus Stadium yesterday, despite a spirited first-half display with the goals from Ikram Reynolds and Tashreeq Matthews.
I think if you are to start the squad from fresh in terms of bringing in new players, it's always going to be difficult. It depends who you are competing with last season. And obviously right now, probably Sundowns, they were playing with third gear. You understand what I'm saying? So we also have to be smart. If you are to compete with Sundowns, you have to capitalize. How do you capitalize? Sundowns, they're going to play Champions League. Sundowns players are going to play in the national team. Sundowns players, there's going to be injuries and so.
Well, elsewhere, with the Serie A and La Liga set to take regular season fixtures abroad to Australia and the USA, Premier League Chief Executive Richard Muster says that the Premier League has no plans to take games abroad. AC Milan's home match against Como in February is set to be played more than 13,000 kilometers away from San Siro, while Villarreal's home fixture with Barcelona in December would take place at the Hard Rock Stadium in the USA. Both football federations are seeking permission from FIFA and UEFA, but the Premier League is not following suit. In tennis, Coco Gauff received a walkover into the last 16 at the Cincinnati Open, with Jessica Peguela's fate still undecided. Now, Gauff was due to go up against Diana Yastremska yesterday, only for the Ukrainian to withdraw due to illness. The reigning French Open champion will now take on Lucia Bronzetti tomorrow. Then finally in golf, the top two players in the world will play side by side in the first two rounds of the BMW Championship as the PGA Tour paired Scottie Scheffler with Rory McIlroy to begin the penultimate tournament of the season. Scheffler and McIlroy are slated to tee off around 11:15 tomorrow and around 38 minutes past 1 on Friday at East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta. They not only won 2 in the world rankings, but also in the FedEx Cup race as the season winds down. Before I say goodbye, Ashraf, your thoughts on La Liga and Serie A taking their games abroad?
I told you before, absolute nonsense.
You don't agree with it?
Not league games. I mean, they can play exhibition games, which they do off-season. They do whatever it is, that's fine. But there's a reason why a league is demarcated in a certain region. Geographically. That's why it's called, South Africa's PSL or English League or La Liga. At this stage, what do you have, like another Club World Cup, like in between seasons? Because it's all about money. It's trying to expand. And I know it's Miami because it's lots of Spanish speakers. That's pretty obvious. But overall, that's for Spain, then the Italians as well. Really, it just dilutes the beauty of having clubs play in their own league and then play across territories in, say, UEFA tournaments or African Champions League and then get to the Club World Cup. That's fine. But to play league games outside of their own territories, really, we might as well say let them play one half of football in the second half rugby.
So for you, it's a total no-no?
Total no-no.
You don't think that there's pros and cons for it, because obviously to increase the fan base, commercial growth in terms of getting more sponsorships from outside their own region, brand building, obviously, yes, on the negative side, there's also chances that there'll be a local fan backlash because of that. And also,
well, there would be. You're a supporter of Barcelona and you play your one game and you watch every single game home and away. You got a season ticket, and then they play the one game in Miami.
Of course.
Are they going to fly them down to Miami?
No, of course not.
Yeah, well, they'll call it Miami Vice if that's the case. Really.
I can only imagine the logistical strain, though, of getting it all done. Yeah. But we are yet to see how things pan out. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
4-time World Rugby champions, the Springboks, want to emphasize their winning mentality. However, the Wallabies are going all out to upset the reigning global champs. This is the Rugby Championship. Experience world-class rugby action. South Africa collides with Australia on Saturday, 16 August at 5:10, live on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You think you cannot afford a lawyer? Think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All, we honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Baswani Mpatlele with me from Markway Fund Managers. Baswani, you got news to start with from Capitec.
Yes, Chef, afternoon. With Capitec there, they gave us their trading update for the first 6 months. It was a very bullish update. I mean, the guys are the most resilient bank currently on the JSE with year-to-date gains at 18%. They added more with today's performance update, where they indicated that the profits as per headline earnings per share is up 27% as expected. Despite a volatile environment, this thanks to all the bank's division contributing positively. Key takeaways being that transaction, the insurance, their lending growth, and still with a stable credit loss ratio, reflecting risk management being done very well, and the stock trades higher. In the market in general, we're seeing that a weaker dollar is supportive of global markets hitting all-time highs, following the positive U.S. inflation data we saw from yesterday. Markets volatility has declined, no fear. We are seeing across different asset classes. Well documented is that the interest rates are expected to be cut now in the U.S. in September, fully being priced in, and it's reflected in the bond yields that are lower, and also reflected in the likes of the gold price that is picked up for 0.6% at $3,368 an ounce, bullish. Meanwhile, oil is doing well, being bearish for consumers, down 0.3% at $65.85 a barrel, as there's an increase in supply surplus, and the US and Russia negotiating taking place at the end of the week. They say consumers are already realizing some of this through the petrol prices. And some of the other good news outside petrol prices is the fact that business confidence is rising to a 4-month high in July, reflected through increased vehicle sales, manufacturing output, lower inflation. Meanwhile, retail sales, which is a key consumer spending driver and drives over 60% of GDP, is holding its momentum, being positive. So all good news filtering through the market. The calendar looks clear, so momentum will hold. When we look at equity performances, we see the Dow is up 0.6, S&P and Nasdaq up 0.2, Europe, the DAX CAC up 0.8, FTSE 0.2, JSE is up 1%, industrials thankfully up 1.9, financial 0.9, and resource sectors up 0.1. When we look at the rand, it's looking healthy and positive at 17.50 against the dollar, 20.50 against the euro, and 23.77 against the pound.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Baswani. And remember, we'll have another round of the markets, like a full hour with Jimmy Moyaha coming up from, 6 to 7 tonight. So listen out for that.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
You certainly are listening to the National Pulse, and we'll take your calls pretty shortly. So you know the number to dial in, right? Do save that number permanently. And if you do calling in, Phineas reminding me, our technical producer, that if you're calling in for the first time, let us know so he can give you the applause sound effects. I'm just putting it out if you are. Male, female, young or old. Let's hear what you have to say. Well, what do you have to say about water? It's a big issue, isn't it? Now, the African Union Africa Water Investment Summit for 2025 started today in Cape Town, and this landmark event convened under South Africa's G20 presidency brings together African heads of state, global investors, ministers, private sector leaders, and development institutions in this what is seen as a unified call to close Africa's $30 billion annual water investment gap. So South Africa's president naturally delivered the keynote address. We picked out some key sound bites from there, which we think you need to hear. Firstly, just a clip from the keynote.
It's an honor to welcome you all to Cape Town for the official opening of the Africa Water Investment Summit. This summit is a landmark moment, not only for Africa, but for the global movement for access to safe water for all. It is really pleasing to see so many people gathered here to come and discuss the issue of water on our continent. Gathered here are people who are in government, as ministers, as premiers, as deputy ministers, as mayors, and also as legislators, members of parliament. But gathered here are also people who are potential investors in water, and that is why this is dubbed an investment summit on water. As we walked in, I had a sense that indeed we have a lot of investors here. And I could smell money. I could feel money. And I hope you brought money here. We gather here as decision makers, as investors, as financiers, and as champions at a time when the world faces a deepening water crisis. Yet this is also at a moment of immense opportunity. Immense opportunity because if we are able to rise together, water can become not just a means of survival, but a driver of economic transformation, innovation, and peace. This summit is rooted in a journey that began nearly a decade ago. In 2016, the high-level panel of water was launched by the then UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who addressed us a little while ago on video, as well as the World Bank President Jim Kum-yong. At this event 9 years ago, 11 heads of state came together to rethink how the world should approach the challenge of water. Following their recommendations, the African Union established the Africa Water Investment Program.
Right, there we are. What is that? Show me the money, isn't it? Now, the president then urged investors to, effectively emphasizing the point once again, invest in water.
Outlook Council and the Global Water Investment Platform will serve as the world's premier high-level political and investment platform on water. It will track progress, unlock finance, report annually, and align efforts across the G20, the UN, multilateral development banks, and the private sector. We will, through this process, be able to have accountability to see whether progress is being made on investments in water. It will also mobilize the leadership, the capital, and also innovation that is required to transform water from a crisis sector into an opportunity sector. Last week, we were able to demonstrate the capacity and appetite of Africa on mega, really big projects, investments, here in South Africa when I launched the second phase of a massive water project purification plant in the province of Gauteng. This plant is part of a development that will supply an extra 600 million liters of water a day to address the growing water demand across 4 of our South African provinces. This flagship project is a demonstration of our government's commitment to infrastructure investment, economic upliftment, and also ensuring sustainable water supply for future generations.
Okay, then there's the issue of the water mafia. And the Minister of Water and Sanitation, Phemi Majodina, spoke to SABC News about that, the water mafia.
You know, that one is terrible. Water mafias are killing this country. Water mafias must be treated and be charged for treason because they are sabotaging the entire continent. In South Africa, we have seen that there is a syndicate of that, but we are working very close with security agencies that they must pay for their sins. They are destroying the infrastructure, and when they destroy infrastructure, then municipalities will be subjected to tender for their water tankering, and that is not good. Municipalities cannot sustain that. It's very expensive, but those are criminal activities that must be condemned by all of us.
Okay, there we are. So, reaction on that regarding water. I wonder what you make of that. In fact, here's one from Teboho tweeting saying, if investment is made in water, from whom will the investors' returns be made from? Will it not be ordinary people? Cyril is effectively privatizing public resources. This summit's true intent, it's privatization of water resources. Well, one thing I must say about listeners on the National Pulse and throughout the nation, they come up with strong opinions, like it or not.
Spar brings you super savings. Get Pampers Active Baby Nappies or Nappy Pads Value Pack for $169.99 plus 400 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or Cadbury Crunchy Lunch Bar PS or 5-star chocolate bars, any two for 22 Rand plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Plus, you could win your share of 6 million Rand in instant cash. Prices valid until 24 August 2025. While stocks last. T's and C's apply.
When your internet connection fails, does it really matter how fast it is? Business class internet is built for businesses. With remote monitoring, that means faster problem resolution and a backup LTE connection that keeps you online. Your company deserves business class internet because just reboot the router isn't a business strategy. Find reliability at vodacombusiness.co.za. Together, let's build the extraordinary. Further together. Vodacom Business.
It is time to experience spectacular football talent from 19 African nations. East Africa is on full vibration. From Tanzania, Kenya to Uganda, the pitch personnel are hungry for continental glory. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Witness Chan 2024 on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 from 2 to 30 August 2025. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
So that we've been speaking about, Ukraine and Russia. So those talks, there's been Trump talking and the coalition of willing meeting now has started. So lots to come out of that. We'll see if we can update you on that one too, right? And by the way, 2 learners from Adams College in Durban will be representing, south of Durban, they'll be representing South Africa in Sweden in a global science competition. And these learners, 11 years old, Elitle Msome and Zinazo Nzama, they started a project called Aqua Crusader. It's a robot that extracts pollution like microplastics from rivers and the sea. Well, there we are, talking about winning and people champions in their space. These youngsters are doing just that. Right, let's get your thoughts. Pele, in Kroonstad. Let's talk about the USA.
Yes, it's Pelo in Kronstadt.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Good talking to you. Go for it. What's your point?
Ashraf, I just want to find out from you, my friend, which international body is credible and is trustworthy? You start with World Health Organization, United Nations itself, World Economic Forum. You talk about people like Bill Gates, Rothschild, NATO, and all other international bodies. Which ones indeed are just credible and they stand with the poor? You take many other bodies in the Economic Forum. You have credit agencies. Take for an example the name Standard and Poor. You didn't think that they are for the poor, but they will rate you in such a way that when you borrow money, you're going to pay very heavily. So whatever is happening, whether it's America, whether it's United Kingdom, Germany, they'll do things that they like because these international bodies are just useless, I might say.
Okay, got that. You made your point. They're pretty useless. So what do we do then? That's Pele in Kroonstad. JJ in Polokwane. Go for it. What's your point?
Ashraf, good day.
Good day indeed.
The Kalikril, all what he was talking, it's political statements, all political statements. But in the process, he indicates that they don't like politics and government and all those type of things. And I don't know on which earth will we get people just to fall from heaven to come and coordinate things to start. Yes, I understand him when he says, no, we don't want the ANC, but ANC is not part and parcel of the group that is starting the whole thing. The problem is that since the inception of the ANC, those who hated it continue to hate it even today. So even if it didn't do anything, because they hate it, they will talk about it. You see, that is the problem that we are having.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, the ANC would do well if the ANC delivers, even if people hate it, they can only hate it so much. There is a problem with that, true.
The steering committee is supposed to get all the structures together so that they should determine the agenda. But they want the agenda to be determined somewhere, and they go in with the agenda. And when they are told that people who must come and discuss this will set the agenda. So at the beginning, they simply want the agenda, and I don't know how it should be done.
Yeah, well, you make an important point, yeah.
Because they should not have consulted with the people on the ground room. That's why they say you come with everything that you want to put on the table. Okay. And the others want to put on the table right from the beginning.
JJ, you raise your points, very important ones too. Let's get to Anonymous. Also want to talk about the dialogue. Go for it. Hello. Anonymous, hello? Anonymous. Okay, Anonymous gone. Right, there's many others talking about the dialogue. I have no doubt the dialogue starts on Friday. We'll be broadcasting from UNISA on Friday. Between now and then and the whole of next week, I have no doubt it'll be top of the agenda.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf Matabuche. Ashraf, these parties or these groupings that are withdrawing from the initial stage of the national dialogue want to be seen as if they are the best or they are good towards the finances of this country. Because their main issue that make them to pull out is because of they don't want to participate where money is a discussion. Because remember, the whole or every step of the way until the national dialogue takes place, financing must be there. So they want to be seen as clean people, and then they don't want to be part of the decisions.
Say to a large degree, I do tend to agree with you. There's a sense of like holier than thou, like they've suddenly got it all worked out. That's it. We'll check to Action SA just now, right? Right, here's another. Okay, let me get that. Here's one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. My statement would be
scrap your ideology and your BEE policies and your land expropriation. We would get tremendous investment in this country, which would help the unemployment rate no end. People don't care really about the ideology, friends with Russia, friends with Hamas, and so on. The average person wants jobs, and they want to be able to have food and school their children, have a roof over their head. Do it, for goodness sake. This is Mike from Hillcrest in KZN.
Got that, Mike. I don't know if I completely agree with you. I mean, I agree for the person in the street, on the township, they want food on the table. But, you know, all countries have alliances. Every country that you can think about has some alliances or not. And, you know, you can debate BE whether it's worked effectively. And I would be critical of it, actually. But the principle of transformation, how do we throw that away? Think about it. Greg House has got the news. It's 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Traditional healer sentenced in the northwest and talks to end Sudan's civil war. Good day to you. The Molopo Regional Court in the northwest has convicted and sentenced traditional healer Bongani Mamofela to 15 years in prison for 2 separate sexual offences. He was sentenced to 5 years for an attempted rape and 10 years for a rape. The sentences will run consecutively. His name will also be added to the National Register for Sex Offenders. Sitling Lehihi reports.
Mafolela was sentenced for a rape he committed in February 2022 in Mahikeng after raping his victim during an alleged cleansing ceremony, claiming to be placing muti inside the victim's body. While the victim did not report the incident after Mafolela threatened her, she reported the matter to police in April 2022 after discovering she was pregnant. Mafolela was arrested and released on bail. However, while out on bail in September 2024, Mafolela was rearrested after another victim in Mabatu reported him to police. Sintle Englihihi, SABC News, Mahikeng.
Judge Nathan Erasmus has denied a leave to appeal application by 3 people in the High Court in Cape Town convicted in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and trafficking matter. Jacquena Paulus, Stefano van Rijn and the child's mother Kelly Smith are serving life sentences on charges of human trafficking and 10 years for kidnapping. In handing down his judgment, Judge Nathan Erasmus said there were no reasonable prospects for success if the matter was taken up on appeal. State witness Laurentia Lombard has also been granted indemnity from prosecution. The ANC's Castro de Bruyn has been elected as the new mayor of the Beaufort West municipality in the Western Cape. The town has been without a mayor for the past 4 months following the resignation of a DA councillor. ANC Central Karoo regional spokesperson Siyabulela Tom says the election of de Bruyn is an historic moment in a DA-led council.
Councillor Castro de Bruyn brings with him the necessary political wealth of experience. He was the former regional secretary of the ANC Youth League, and up until recently, he was the chief whip of the ANC in the very same Beaufort West local municipality. We believe his leadership will bring stability, strengthen service delivery, and put the needs of the people first. Inclusive governance fosters a more responsive and cooperation in local government, which are the basic tenets of effective and efficient municipality.
A delegation from the UAE's landed at the Bulembo Airport in the Eastern Cape ahead of a much-anticipated private visit of the country's president, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, to the province. The Eastern Cape Premier, Oscar Mabuyane, welcomed the delegation and says the visit will have economic spin-offs for the province.
We believe that Eastern Cape has got unparalleled potential in terms of helping the South Africa to grow its economy, and we've got just to look at that and how best as spheres of government we work collaboratively to push and help the Eastern Cape grow and be linked to the international markets through Johannesburg, etc., etc. So from where we are, and we believe that these events like these, activities like these, should be stepping stone towards the right direction for us.
Sudan's Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan is reported to have met the U.S. Senior Advisor for Africa, Masad Boulas, in Switzerland to discuss a plan to end the civil war. If confirmed, it would mark the general's first contact with U.S. President Donald Trump's administration. Previous mediation efforts have failed to secure a ceasefire between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The top story, the Malopo Regional Court in the Northwest has convicted and sentenced a traditional healer to 15 years in prison for 2 separate sexual offences. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
In sports this hour, Amakhosi eyes consecutive victories against Polokwane City. And in the business of sport, we talk Orbit College and the club's finances, especially now that they're in the Betway Premiership. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Jean Avenue westbound in Centurion has a crime scene reported at the N14 highway, and that's causing some delays. The R59 southbound in Alberton is queuing towards Swartkoppies Road. In KZN, the N3 southbound in Pietermaritzburg has a truck crash reported after Sanctuary Road, leading the road to be closed, and Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound slow moving towards the R300 interchange, and Robert Sobukwe Road southbound in Moderdam queuing towards Portchets Quarry Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
West Africans and Niger are hunting for nothing but 3 points, while Bafana Bafana are pumped to achieve a win. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Niger confronts South Africa on Friday, 15 August at 7 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Fly Safe's Business Booster is back to help elevate and celebrate small local businesses. Enter now at flysafe.co.za. Tell us about your business, and you could be one of 6 standout enterprises to win 10 return business class flights plus brand exposure across Fly Safe's various platforms. Whether you're making, creating, or innovating, we're here to help your business not just take off but skyrocket. Fly Safe, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So it's been fascinating. We heard earlier on that AfriForum and Solidarity have withdrawn from the first National Dialogue Convention. And just to remind ourselves so we don't get confused, there's the overall National Dialogue, which should start in a couple of months' time, maybe October, but there's the National Convention, which really is the pace setter of the National Dialogue, when it all comes together, the opening ceremony, so to speak, where a whole lot of things get dished out, agreed upon, delegated. That happens this week, Friday, Saturday, at UNISA in Pretoria. And we know that AfriForum and Solidarity now having withdrawn, they're not the only ones. There's news now that Action SA going the same route. They will not participate in the convention itself. Does that mean that they will not participate in the overall national dialogue? Let's find out exactly what their position is and why. Lerato Ngubeni is Action SA's Parliamentary Chief Whip. Appreciate your time on the National Pulse. Thanks for joining us.
Ashraf, thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
so have I got that right? You've withdrawn from the convention, but not the overall principle of the national dialogue, right?
So we realized that our statement has been misread and misquoted. Action SA has not withdrawn. We have said that we're going to send, instead of sending our full delegation and a complement of the most senior of our leaders, we're going to send the 2 of us, which includes myself as the Parliamentary Chief Whip and Dr. Jose Letlape, because we believe that we should, my husband was telling me the other day, says you can't always bark from the outside. And so the fact of the matter is that taxpayers' money is being spent on this dialogue, the convention included. And so we are sending the two of us there for, watch and brief so that we can see exactly what is going on, because we have seen that the legacy foundations have pulled out, and we've said that we're not going to do that. And we've made concessions as Action SA to say that we will be constructive in all of our engagements with regards to the body politic right now as it stands. So we have not withdrawn. We are sending a delegation, but it's only going to be partial because we want to be on watch and brief. We want to see so that we can present a differing view to the South African people if needs be.
Well, interesting, the analogy that your husband gave you, because I spoke earlier to AfriForum and I made the point about the only way you can play a game of rugby is you have to be on the pitch, not outside the pitch, and maybe you can influence greater change within. So to a degree, your family conversation would be similar or aligned to what I said. But having said that, so the two of you will be observers, but observers is not the same as a participant. I mean, I could be an observer as a media representative, but I'm not a participant. I mean, in fact, you're on the outside looking in.
No, actually, it's not like that. It's almost like being an alternate member in a parliamentary committee. You don't get voting rights, but you definitely can make your voice heard. So we definitely can make a contribution. We can make commentary. We can, make our position known and voiced out without fully participating in the dialogue. And so that's why we're going there. And so it doesn't mean that we're only just observing. No, we're doing actually two functions. And we think that it's the most prudent way forward. And as we said, taxpayers' money is being spent. We want to go and see whether it is in fact a gimmick to rubber stamp or to launch an ANC electoral campaign towards 2026 and early 2027, depending on when the local government elections will take place. And we want to see what is it that the legacy foundations are arguing about, because there are many amounts with regards to this national dialogue that have been bandied around. And we don't want to be part of, people who have been allies to the governing party, all of them just muscling each other around. We want to go there so that we can indeed represent the citizens' voice that they are saying is missing. And if all of them are pulling out, who's going to be looking out for citizens? And so that's what we are going there to do. We're not going there to rubber stamp, what they have, what this dialogue is already aiming to do. But we are going to be presenting a view that is going to be representative of what we believe the people of South Africa's aspirations are. Mm-hmm. And that's why we are going.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the statement from Action SA, and of course it raises many issues around stakeholders and the broader public, and talking about what seems to be, and I'm quoting, an insistence on forging ahead despite serious unresolved questions, particularly regarding the lawful appropriation of the budget, right? And there's more. But then, this is an important point. Action SA will not participate in or lend legitimacy to a process under these circumstances. So give me clarity. Would you not be lending legitimacy to it anyway?
No, we don't view it that way. And I want to reiterate that, for example, I don't know if you ever have spoken to the appropriations chairperson, Musi Maimane, who confirmed that, he doesn't know where the appropriations for this particular dialogue is going to come from, who's paying for it, and how is the money going to come through. And so we believe that, you can't have a dialogue about democracy that is fraudulently funded. And so we want to go and see, what are we spending the money on? These people who are being, stoked as leaders of society, who's going to be in the room? We want to be able to go and see, and not, as Minister Motshekga made a quirk in Parliament about some of us when we have differing views. She says, finder will always come and make statements about something they know nothing about. Well, we don't want to be finders. We want to be there. We want to be able to give a real account as to what transpired, who was in the room. And of course, you'll have media houses there, but we have constituencies and the public who will want to know what we've experienced from a different lens. And so we as Action SA, honestly, we had a very robust debate around this issue. And we came to what I believe, and also the team believes, is a sober approach to this thing. Ashraf, whether you like it or not, it's happening. as the president has said.
And we'll be there. You're right. We broadcast the show from there, whether I like it or not. Point made.
Yeah, we're there. And so this thing is happening. It's taking place. As the president said, Koloya Elia Haidumaya Tamaya. It's going ahead, whether or not, we participate. And we believe that we can be constructive and we can highlight some of the anomalies that we may find so that the South African people can have a sober view of what is actually transpiring there. And that's really our view and our stance.
Interesting. I mean, Musi Maimani's tweet today saying, I've sent an urgent letter to the president with serious questions about the national dialogue. And I'll read some of that later on after we're done. But here's the point. You made the point earlier on about you want to see whether it's a gimmick or not, right? So let's say you're there as this observer, right? What would convince you, A, that it is a gimmick, or B, what would convince you that in fact it's not a gimmick? It's a lot more meaningful than the critics have put it out to think.
So let me underscore my response by saying this, Ashraf. I'm a firm believer in citizenship. I'm a firm believer in civic education. And I'm a firm believer in dialoguing. And I believe that, a lot of us who were growing up at the time of CODESA were not there. And so this national dialogue represents that particular moment. And we're hoping that it could have been used in a similar fashion, but have a broader participation of society and not just, ANC affiliated or former struggle stalwarts being in the room. And so I want to underscore it by saying that. But secondly, to say that we will know whether this is a genuine dialogue that is encompassing of all South Africans if we don't find that 95% of the people who are in the room are affiliated to the ruling party and the governing party. That will be indicator number one. We know who they are. We know what they have done, and we know who they are affiliated with, and we will be able to deduce whether this is genuine or not. We will be able to deduce whether this is genuine or not by the conversations that are being put on the table and who has been given the platforms to say what they need to say. And so that there will be different pointers that will demonstrate whether or not this is genuine or whether this is a dialogue or a campaign, electioneering campaign, disguised as a national dialogue at our own dime. And so we have the right to be there. Every South African has a right to be there. We are paying for this dialogue. It's not coming out of the ANC's coffers. And so we can't be outside of it because the ANC will just turn around and say, well, you all pulled out. Everyone wouldn't participate. This thing is happening. And so you don't want to participate. You're not interested in democracy. You're not interested in moving South Africa forward. And they can use it in that fashion. And so we don't want that. We are saying that we want to be there. We want to be able to tell the story many years from now. When our children will ask us, what is it that you did when the moment presented itself? And we believe that this is such a moment, and we don't want to be left behind in that regard, irrespective of how unfavorable the circumstances may be.
Okay. What about this position, which is that many people, people who call into this talk show and many others here on SFM, and of course on other channels nationwide, there's not a day that goes by without 5 or 10 people on one show saying, this is just a waste of time, waste of money. And in fact, this is the key pointer, Lerato, that the real national dialogue is something they simply have to do or find out by listening to a show like this. They'll pick up a thread of what the nation is feeling. So what are your thoughts about that? That in fact, we know all the problems already. What we need is not so much a dialogue, but a national action plan. And the question, therefore, is this. Should that action plan be done as broad-based as you suggest? Or what about those who've been elected to parliament? Isn't that their job? And if they can't do the job, then they must all get out.
Ashraf, we don't need an action plan. We need leadership. We've had so many action plans. You remember the national, the development plan. It's not lapsed yet. 2035. It's not lapsed yet. It doesn't matter what plans you put together. If we don't clean out the system, and you've got people who are really about servicing the people of South Africa, cleaning out the gunk, cleaning out the rot, making sure that monies, you don't spend, 5 times for a toilet paper in municipalities and spend so much money on pens. And you get people who are actually willing to put, their hands to the soil and begin to work for the people of this country. That is what we need. And we need a leadership that's going to beseech us to do exactly that. We don't need any more plans. I believe we have a lot of plans, and I think they're piling up in reams and reams of paper, and now I'm sure most of them are digitized. What we need is a galvanizing of society for one vision. I will give you just one last example, if I may.
Yeah.
We spent some time in Taiwan earlier this year. And once, the Taiwanese were telling us, once people have won elections, the entire nation rallies behind the vision of whatever the winner had promised. And then they check whether they deliver on it. If they don't, they vote them out. That's what we need to be doing. And so we electioneer, if you think about it, South Africans are perpetually in electioneering mode. We've just come out of an election. We're facing a new election for 2026, and then we'll face another election for 2029. We have this perpetual electioneering mode. And that's what South Africans in particular need to get on board and say, we are tired of this. And as civil society, we must get our hands dirty. We can't leave all of our decision-making to the political elites who have put us in this mess that we have found ourselves in as we sit.
All
so
right.
it's a lot. South Africa is a movie, as Dan Koda says, and we are the watch party. But it's important for us to make sure that our monies are not being used in ways that we cannot afford anymore. We don't endorse, a sham dialogue disguised as nation building and putting together the nation. Meanwhile, it's a gimmick for electioneering for the ruling party. We want to make sure that public funds are spent accordingly and that the people who need to be in the room are indeed in the room.
Well, maybe the point, South Africa is a movie and we actually we may all be extras in some form or the other. But let me end with this very quickly as we wrap up, right? Without getting into the merits of the dialogue, because we don't know what will come out, and I hear what you're saying, right? Do you agree on the overall principle that where we are as a country needs a national dialogue outside of Parliament as opposed to parliamentarians finding solutions and actioning those solutions to our problems?
Ashraf, if the racial tensions that we've seen of late and slurs and South Africans seeming like, we're pushing further and further apart from each other, there's nothing that brings you together. It's like, having dinner with your family, making sure that it's a ritual. You check in with one another. How are you feeling? What's your pulse? It's important to dialogue. It's important to build those bridges amongst our society. And so I would say as a principle, dialoguing is important in very many forms. We don't need a massive one, but we need intermittent dialogues. And so we believe in the principle of dialoguing as a catalyst for change and as a catalyst for nation
Point
building.
made.
For
Question is, what type of dialogue? Lerato Ngobeni, Action Essays Parliamentary Chief Whip, thank you for connecting with us on the National Pulse, which is a dialogue of sorts anyway.
The boardroom heat is on and the pressure is rising. The Insurance Apprentice, hosted by the one and only Babi Moloi, is delivering drama, tough decisions, and big personalities every week. Expect bold moves, emotional twists, and contestants you'll either root for or roast. And yes, you'll be surprised what you learn about insurance along the way. Open up to the Insurance Apprentice, Thursdays at 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
It's a tough day for Mark. Tight deadlines and challenges everywhere. But Mark can rest easy because when he bought his Hino 700 2845 truck tractor, he received a complimentary service plan covering up to 210,000 kilometers for short haul and up to 280,000 kilometers for long haul. Nice one, Mark. Visit your dealer today to find out more about this limited time offer. Hino, all the way. T's and C's apply.
SAFM celebrates its 89th birthday this month by giving listeners an exclusive opportunity to attend the prestigious Joy of Jazz taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre from the 26th to the 28th of September 2025. To stand a chance to win these sought-after tickets, simply SMS SAFM 89 followed by your name to 41391 and stay tuned to SAFM as we could be calling you. SAFM is the official media partner for the Dipala stage at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. Entries open from the 7th of August and close on the 31st of August 2025. Winners will be randomly selected and called from the 1st of September 2025. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. T's and C's apply. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
I tell you what, there's so much to come out of those conversations. And by the way, I mean, here's a quote talking about the Water Investment Summit. Water is a human right and should not be weaponized. But what do you pick up on that conversation from the Action SA perspective and the ones we've had earlier on regarding, AfriForum and regarding Russia and Ukraine, and that first conversation with Professor David Monyai? I'm sure you have lots to say regarding that US report on human rights in South Africa, still saying it's pretty damning. I mean, that actual report. Well, in the meantime, do you know much about the P20 Women's Parliament? So Les Govender is with me, the NCOP Deputy Chairperson. Les, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to SAFM listeners on the National Pulse. It's good to have you listen to you. Yeah.
Much appreciated, right. So let's talk about this. First of all, I mean, this P20 Women's Parliament has got a theme, but I would think that many people listening would say, well, first of all, what is the P20 Women's Parliament?
Well, the P20 Women's Parliament is a parliament that runs parallel to the G20. Now, this is a parliament of the speakers of the G20, the G20 nations. So we have this parliament where we get all the speakers together, and they then listen to the issues that are being raised by different countries that are in the G20. And those issues are then taken forward to the G20 summit that will take place later in the year.
Okay, so all of this linked then to that all-important G20, and I mean, there's been different components, including Y20 for youth and B20 for business. I get that. Tell me then about the theme of the summit, of your P20, of the P20 Women's Parliament itself.
Well, the P20 Women's Parliament is, if I may quote, accelerating equality, sustainability, and shared growth, correcting the gender redistribution bias of growth and development through the Women's Charter, the NDTP, as well as the 2025 G20 development priorities.
Right. Now, the reality, I mean, we've heard many similar, themes along that line. Like, what's different about this, and ultimately, how does one move a theme into an actual plan?
We always hear about the gender imbalance. We hear about gender inequality. We hear about women being marginalized, not given equal opportunities, and so on and so on. So this session that we had today, which will continue tomorrow, brought together various speakers from about 22, 23 different organizations, representing a cross-section of not only people in business, people from the social sector, as well as government and institutions representing democracy. They've all come together today to air their concerns, raise issues, and at the same time provide some solutions to some of the challenges that women are experiencing in our various communities across the country. So it was a very exciting session.
Okay, what happens next? I mean, they raise these issues, they put on what are the challenges are. Many of them are very clear to us, they're glaring, right? What happens after that?
Well, like we did with the youth parliament that we had in June, the youth parliament report, together with the report that will come out of this 2-day session, will then pick out pertinent issues that will feed into the P20 Speakers Parliament. And these issues will then be debated at the P20 Speakers Parliament, and then those issues will then be taken to the G20 forum, where we'll have the presidents of the G20 countries. Now, what is very crucial about this, Ashraf, is that people from the ground are speaking about what the issues are, and it will not be left just there. It will then be taken and fed into the P20 Speakers Parliament. So it'll find resonance there, and then of course, as I said, it'll go into the agenda for the G20.
Okay. Is there any issue that's emanated so far already on day one that effectively jumped off the page? What I'm saying, a lot of the challenges are very predictable, but is there anything that emerged that was rather unpredictable? It's like, wow.
Something that really stood out for me was, women spoke about gender mainstreaming. Now, that is something that we've been hearing about for a while. But what they said is, when we are doing the budget process, we need to ensure that gender mainstreaming is budgeted for. There's no point in talking about an issue if you're not going to budget for it to ensure that it does find resonance on the ground. So access to funding is very, very critical. And something that people felt very emotional about was the fact that, the abuse of children especially. In fact, we actually had a moment of silence for one of the children that was abused by a father and in a critical condition. So, that is another issue that came out very strongly, apart from the other issues like climate change, gender-based violence. You need to have more women in executive positions, in management positions, and the environment needs to be created for for this to happen. So there was a clarion call to men and to government to make the environment conducive to for women to express themselves and to excel in their various fields.
Okay, lots to reflect on there. Appreciate your time here on the National Pulse, and we certainly need to get the pulse rate of the nation moving on this issue. Les Govender, NCOP Deputy Chairperson, reflecting on the P20 Women's Parliament, and that's part of many, many subsections of the broader G20. Can you see that? This is just one of them. This is the National Pulse. Let's get the news headlines now. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. More than 70 learners from an agricultural school in the Eastern Cape have been rushed to hospital due to food poisoning. The Molopo Regional Court in the Northwest has convicted and sentenced a traditional healer to 15 years in prison for 2 separate sexual offences. And as the world is grappling with a number of challenges, including the recent US tariffs, the Africa 50 is hosting its shareholders meeting in Mozambique. More on that story and other news at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 westbound queuing towards the N1 Diepkloof interchange and the N1 southbound in Pretoria, a stationary vehicle after Garsfontein Road. Beyers-Naudé Drive northbound in Northcliffe is slow moving at Milner Avenue. In KZN, the R102 southbound queuing towards the M25 Commercial Highway, the N3 southbound in Pietermaritzburg has a truck crash reported after Sanctuary Road, leading the road to be closed off, and Chris Hani Road westbound queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, heavy traffic reported in the central Claremont area. Coburg Road northbound in Tableview has a crash between Plattekloof Road and Blaubank Road, and Voortrekker Road eastbound in Maitland has a crash at Beach Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, to me, another round of football on the go tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Kaizer Chiefs will be looking for consecutive victories against Polokwane City in the Betway Premiership tonight. The Glamour Boys kicked off their campaign on a high with a 2-0 win over Stellenbosch FC, while Rise and Shine settled for a point in their goalless draw against Magezi at the Old Peter Mokaba Stadium last time out. Now, Chiefs did not have a good home record last season, as they only managed to pick up 19 points from 14 matches with just 5 wins, 4 draws and 5 losses. It's something that assistant coach Cedric says that they need to rectify starting with today's game.
We need to do everything to put ourselves in good conditions heading to tomorrow's game as well. It's our first home game in front of our fans, and we know what we have been lacking last season, the consistency, which why tomorrow game for us is very important. We are very focused, everyone, the players, the technical staff, the management. We know the importance of tomorrow's game.
Also in action today, Golden Arrows host Richards Bay. Stellenbosch looking to bounce back to winning ways against Magezi. Sekhukhune United looking for straight wins as they welcome TS Galaxy, and Durban City host Chippa United. And while we're still talking about the Betway Premiership, let's talk all things business of sport.
The Business of Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Righty, so today we're talking debutants Orbit College, what is needed financially for them to survive competing in this top league. We are joined on the line as per usual by Nqobile Ndlovu, who's the founder of Cash and Sport. A very good afternoon to you, Nqobile. Always great chatting to you. Perhaps let's start with Orbit College, finding themselves in terms of where they find themselves financially on an annual basis, and how much they've been making to this date.
Orbit College, and good afternoon to me. Orbit College is a technical and vocational education college. It's essentially your tech colleges of back in the day. And as such, they're very underfunded. Their annual budget is about, it might seem large, but about 500 million rand. But that's for the entire college, and that's fees, that's the maintenance of the facility, and so on and so on. It's very little in the grand scheme of things. But in terms of the football department itself, less than 10% of that money goes towards football. And my estimation was less than 5 million rand goes towards sport, not directly towards football. So if you were to say only that 5 million rand were to go towards football, it wouldn't even be enough to pay, for 2 months of the PSL grant to, in terms of a team. So it's very little.
I guess then the question is that now that they find themselves in the Betway Premiership with less than 3 million rand, give us perspective. Why then do you think it's so expensive to run a football club, especially looking at this top league?
Well, in terms of a Premier Soccer League club, you're looking at between 30 and 50 million rand annually just to survive. Because let's not forget, you have salaries of players to pay. That 2.5 million rand grant is gone with salaries alone. Then you still have to travel, there's accommodation, you have to book hotels. A squad can be up to 25 players. Then there's staff on top of that. All of those people have to travel. So to host a match, you're paying somewhere in the region of about 600,000 rand, just to host a match. And Orbit, by the way, is not playing at home because their venue is not ready. So they have to go and rent out the stadium in another city in Johannesburg in order to play matches. And all of those will cost them money. So essentially all of their home matches are away matches, so the cost will balloon.
So then with you saying that, does it mean that it's going to practically be hard for Orbit to compete even against some varsities in the league?
My bet is that unless something happens with regards to corporate, with regards to sponsorship or some sort of funding that we're not aware of, Orbit will not be able to participate in the league for an entire season and be able to keep participating on the budget that they have. And this is why I assume there will be some sort of deal, or there is some sort of deal with the Northwest Provincial Government and the Free State Provincial Government in order to assist them financially, because they can't sustain themselves on the funding from the college itself. It's just not possible.
Do you foresee them selling their status?
It is possible, but I am hearing, and I'll report on this in a couple of weeks when I have more details. I'm hearing that there is some sort of structure in the works with regards to the funding of this college that might secure their future. But the sale of the status, I can't write that off.
Hopefully they don't sell their status. But thank you very much, Nqobile. It's always great chatting to you. We are yet to see how Orbit College is going to perform all in all in the Betway Premiership and how they're going to try and bring in that money. But that's it from my side.
I can tell you now, and I heard the conversation, if they have to sell their status because they can't afford to run the club, then the PSL needs a national dialogue.
Literally.
Really. Then there's a serious problem. And in fact, I say if, the reality is many other clubs are doing it already. So there is a need for a national PSL dialogue.
And truth of the
Something's
matter
rotten.
is, if you can't afford to play in the Betway Premiership, what else must you do? If you can't
Yeah,
get
but you
the
can't
sponsorship.
get promoted and get the fans all excited and then say, okay, we've just sold the club now.
No,
So,
no.
yeah.
You've tried to get the sponsorship, but it's not coming in. Like, it's
No,
just
I know
not
that.
working
But
out.
what I'm saying, again, if you then can't get it, and I understand all the sponsors run to Chiefs, Pirates, Sundowns, that's the reality. But that's not different to other clubs in the world. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man United, Man City, Liverpool. That's Arsenal fans are going to be upset. But that's just the reality, right? But at some stage, they still have to survive, even if they're a poorer club. Call it a Stoke City or someone in England, for example. If they then have to sell off the status, where a club then buys into that PSL because they can't get promoted themselves and they give the money, then there's something rotten.
It would
A
really
national
suck.
dialogue. Yeah.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future under the theme Building Resilient Economies for All. We honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, as always, all those facts and figures brought to you by Jimmy Moyaha. What's your big story today, Jimmy?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Today we are speaking to the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. We're speaking to the Minister in that department, Minister Dean McPherson, around the developments in the Department of Public Works related to some of their expenditure. The department has more than 10,000 unutilized buildings, and they have spent little north of 8 billion rands in the last financial year on private leases and maintenance, and this is not related to the 10,000 plus unutilized buildings that they've got. So we've got a conversation with the minister to just try and understand what's happening there, what's going on with some of their plans. We know that they have been on a big concerted effort to turn around the infrastructure in South Africa and to put more into developing new infrastructure in South Africa. And so we're going to be speaking to them about that and getting a sense of what the roadmap looks like there. Then we've got a conversation with the team at Deal Leaders International around Nedbank's announcement that they'd be acquiring fintech company iKhokha. But alongside that, we're going to be taking a look at just other acquisitions and deals and conversations that have been happening. We know the likes of Time Bank recently entered into a deal with Sanlam for their for one of their loan books as well. So we've got quite a bit of things to touch on from that perspective. And then we've got a conversation with the FSCA, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. They have made adjustments and amendments to the regulatory framework that governs pension fund administrators. We're going to take a look at those adjustments and see how they affect fund administrators and how they affect consumers as well. Then we've got a conversation with Alan Gray around the Alan Gray Stable Fund, how that fund has been doing. The fund has been around for quite some time. We're going to speak to their head of institutional clients around that value proposition that they bring to the market. Then we're going to wrap up the conversation with an executive lounge chat. We're going to be speaking to the CEO of 10X Investments around what it is that he gets up to when he's not running 10X Investments. Before we get to all of those stories and conversations, a sense of how the markets have been moving throughout the day, it has been a somewhat easier day considering what we saw yesterday. Yesterday there was a bit of pressure on some of the local equity counters, but today seemingly a much better day across the board. If we look at Asian markets, the Hang Seng was up about almost 2.5%. The Nikkei in Tokyo up around 1.3%. European markets were all in the green as well. The Nasdaq is currently, I'd say, about 7 or 8 basis points to the red, but still has the evening to trade into, whilst the other US markets are in the green. So I suspect the Nasdaq will follow suit and close out in the green as well. Local markets, the All Share up almost a full percent. The top 40 up 1.1%. Industrials up 1.8%. Financials up 1.18%. Resources were down 0.3%. A third of a percent down, but markets didn't seem to mind that at all. If we look at some of the commodity counters, the Brent crude price even better than it was yesterday, $65.39 a barrel. Platinum and palladium a little softer today, but still above key levels. Platinum $1,344 a fine ounce, palladium $1,132. The gold price $3,356 a fine ounce. A quick look at the currency. The rand 17 rand 50 against the US dollar. 1 British pound 23 rand 76. 1 euro 20 rand 51. 1 Australian dollar 11 rand 46. That 17.50 level on the rand, I remember calling earlier the week saying that we would definitely have enough momentum to get to that level. I still don't know if we've got enough momentum to break through that and go down to 17 rand. But thankfully I've got David Shapiro on markets to chat about that a little later on. I want to get his thoughts on that and see what his view is there. A quick look at Bitcoin before we go. $120,000 a Bitcoin, or around 2.122 million rand there for a Bitcoin. So markets seemingly having a better day. Equity markets are showing some signs of life. New all-time highs again on the top 40, of course, with the 1% gains that we saw there. So we're going to dig into these and other stories when we come back. But for now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. Thanks for that, Jimmy. Enjoy your show 6 to 7 tonight, as per always. It means there's now time. In fact, what does your pulse tell you? Do you have your fingers on the pulse? I need to feel it.
Do you know what's hiding behind colorful packaging of unhealthy food? Big food companies target children with unhealthy packaged foods that hide high levels of sugar, salt, and fat, which could lead to heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. But the truth is hidden from consumers. Front of package warning labels are a proven solution to help consumers make informed decisions. The government must act now. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels. Sign the petition on heala.org, HEALA.org, by 30 September.
The reigning champs, Amapagania, want to demonstrate that they have a consistent winning formula. But 2024 semi-finalists, Masandawana, say this time around they will advance to the final. This is the MTN 8 First Leg semi-final. Wafa wafa! Catch Orlando Pirates versus Mamelodi Sundowns on Saturday, 16 August at 2 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
James, congrats on the babies.
Yeah, thanks. It's a wild ride.
You're a new dad, 2 babies, 0 sleep, and 1 car that apparently couldn't cope.
Yeah, the hatchback was my baby, but it just didn't have enough space for my 2 new babies.
And are you happy with the price when you sold to WeBuyCars?
Very. We've even got some extra cash to splurge on one of those fancy prams that you basically need a license for.
Good luck, James. WeBuyCars. Geared for family, geared for you.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So I'm looking at a post from Philip in Everton, a text message. In fact, the AfriForum knows that the civil society organizations are going to challenge them in the national dialogue about U.S. disinformation about South Africa, hence they left. During CODESA, the apartheid government was assisting in terms of capacity like catering, venue, accommodation, logistics, etc. for CODESA to be successful. So why not the President's office? From Philip in Everton, right? So that's one. And then we've got a tweet from Noel Crowie saying, we need some dialogue, but not the proposed framework of the national dialogue. Just listening to SFM Radio's Municipal Watch Show, that's with Kathy Show in the morning, remember, people are angry and helpless at the response from public officials. Okay, I need to hear you, and it's quite incredible, and I have no doubt tomorrow and the next day, it'll always be about the national dialogue, definitely on Friday too, right?
Along the way.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Ashraf, this dialogue obviously is the waste of money, and that is why they cannot reverse the dialogue, because already tender is out. People are already counting now. So that is the reason they cannot reverse it. But just a waste of money. It's just like this commission. Everything that is a waste of our money is unfortunate, because South Africans, we are too lenient to our government.
So then what should we do if it's a waste of money and Parliament's not fixing it? What should we do?
Ashraf, hello. Here's how I describe the national dialogue. It actually reminds me of this premier who once bought iPads and laptops for the schools that didn't even have internet, not even to mention that classrooms had doors and windows. So this is my description of the national dialogue. Thank you. This is Tsepiso.
Okay, Tsepiso, thank you for that. And there's more. I did ask you if you had the chance to address conference at the national dialogue and you got just 1 point to make, what would you tell them?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Mongezi Cendan. Just in response to the interview that we had with Operation Dudula yesterday, I do think that the government of South Africa must stop withholding information from its citizens. For example, we know the crisis that is faced by correctional services in terms of the numbers and percentage split of illegal immigrants that are incarcerated and the cost thereof, right? So I'm asking myself then, why Department of Health and Department of Education are not sharing the same information? Why those costs and the numbers are not shared with the citizens? Mongezi Cendan.
Thanks for that, Mongezi. Well, let's see. I mean, just how clear and open are they? What do we not know that we ought to be knowing? What are we missing out on here? Right, there was a comment about the conversation we had about the Ukraine.
Hi, Ashraf. How do you invite a Ukrainian to analyze the Ukrainian problem? It's only South African that can be against South Africa. Anyone else will first support this country to die before you even give any objective analysis on the situation happening in Ukraine. It's only in South Africa that you find people going to US to beg American to come and take over South Africa.
Well, I hear you. Listen, we have diverse views about the Ukraine and different regions as we do with other regions, like, for example, Palestine, Israel, and Gaza. But I take your point, and maybe the bigger point about only South Africans will talk down South Africa. Interesting thought. I did say the other day, I think South Africans, we have a self-esteem problem, a national self-esteem problem. We sell our country short. We have problems, but hey, there's a heck of a lot that we do pretty well, and we do have a self-esteem problem or a lack thereof. I don't know why.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. This is Mbongo Sundisa. Mr. Ashraf, I would like to urge, the national government and the provincial government of Gauteng, can they please name the Tembisa Hospital Babita Deokaran Hospital, please? The lady died trying to fight corruption in that hospital. Like, for her memory, please, can they please name that hospital after her, so that even for the next generations, they could know like who Babita Deokaran was. Please. Thank you, Mr. Ashraf.
Hey, just cut out the Mr. Beyond that, I think it may be a pretty decent suggestion. I wonder if it's been discussed before by anybody, those in the name-changing conventions offices, right?
Afternoon, Ashraf. This is Ngapsu Aseqibala. I see no difference between Trump and Netanyahu. So, but anyway, even a blind person can make a nomination. I'm just now concerned, worried about how one gets to get that prize. I don't know the formula, is it voting or what, but he doesn't deserve any in that level.
Well,
thank you very much.
I mean, I must say that there's a good reason to believe that a lot of, especially the Nobel Peace Prize, more than any other, there are many others, right? But the Peace Prize appears to be flawed. Not appears, there's belief that it's flawed, that in fact, it is a manifestation of geopolitical lobbying as opposed to, judiciary sitting together and saying, present your case, we think that's right. And if Trump gets it, sure. But it's not just the only one. Go back to the past and you just wonder around that. Right, Joseph in Mthatha. Go for it, Joseph. Hello.
Hello, Ashraf.
Yeah.
Hello, Ashraf.
Yeah, I can hear you, Joseph. What's your point?
No, I'm fine. No, I just want to make a contribution concerning the national dialogue.
Yeah.
Can I switch off the radio?
You just go for it. You're live on the air. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. My concern is with this dialogue thing. In my opinion, I think it's just it's going to be an utter waste of money. But I understand the people who are the proponents who are in favor of it, because they've been invited and they cannot therefore speak against it because they have been invited and been selected to lead or to drive the program. But the reality of the matter is that it's going to favor the government because the government is in the forefront. That's point number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, it has got no statutory legality. Whatever propositions or proposals or points that are raised against it or against the state, they can never be implemented in the sense that it has no statutory authority. The statutory body is the parliament, and in parliament, whatever is discussed, they will have to go to parliament.
All right. Can I
parliament
move on? Yeah, I want to move on because I hear your point. I think you've made it. I need to just get to others. You see, your point may be correct, but some may argue that, in fact, even Parliament, with all its statutory authority, what have they done? What are the people making decisions in Parliament? How come we haven't succeeded then? So can you see it's not a one-size-fits-all story? Joseph, appreciate your dialogue on the National Pulse, right? Here's another on Pulse.
Hi, Ashraf. It's Todd, making my way from Cape Town to Johannesburg. Just with regards to Donald Trump.
Oh, okay. I think we did play that. For some reason, that didn't delete. My apology for that. Let's get to another.
Ashraf and the SFM listener. Ashraf, the councillors, the ANC councillors, they think they're clever. They promise the people heaven and earth. Just after that, then they vanish into thin air. All of a sudden, when maybe those the people they've promised them, that heaven and earth, they protesting. Then the same councillor will send in the police. When the police come in there, they just come and shooting at the protesters. They mustn't interfere with other things into our life. Some of the things the police must just sort. Telling the councillor to sort the problems out. But
okay, got that. In fact, there's been a story all day today that the South Sudan were going to allow Palestinian refugees from Gaza to be resettled in South Sudan. Now, they've issued a statement, official statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs saying, not true. That is not going to happen.
Gole in Pretoria. This national dialogue was not necessarily started by former President Thabo Mbeki. It was started by Holomisa many times. Former President Mbeki only called it this time after during the campaign of election, and then immediately after that, maybe because the ANC did so bad and they realized that they needed a dialogue to listen to people, whereas they've been listening to people all along when they campaign. They go to their houses, they know corruption was there, maladministration, incompetency, service delivery was not delivered. No, service was not delivered at all. And only when the voters started to say ANC were giving a red card or a yellow card, then they stood up.
Okay, I hear what you say. Let's get further comments as we wrap up the show. There's a comment about the water mafia.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ashraf. For how long are we going to have these water endeavors, water whatever, summits? We had David Mahlobo who came here and tell us all these things about water mafia. Till today, we still have the same problem.
Well, how long? I would think you should sort out the problem. You've got a view on everything. Perhaps some solutions too, right?
Gore in Pretoria. Ashraf, I want to agree with the speaker here. The lady is absolutely right. South Africa has got all the resources. It only lacks leadership. We need a leader. We need a single leader who will rally everybody around and say, this is where we're going and march on this way. If you don't march like a majority and you miss the step, you're out. We need a leader like LJK who built Singapore. We need a leader like the King of Dubai, United Arab Emirates, who built Dubai to do what it is in 60 years. We need a leader like Paul Kagame. You know, you may love him, you may hate him, but the man loves the country more than anything else. He will do anything for the country. South Africa, we need leaders, not plans, not anything.
I think there's been a big move to say we need like an executive type of leadership of the country, no matter who's elected. Maybe you have a point. I like the idea of not 60 years, but 60 days. Can you just imagine if we can fix up the country in 60 days? Oh, my goodness, man.
Hi, Ashraf. Hurricane in Nelspruit. Ashraf, you see this dialogue. To me, it's like a campaign of a ANC. So when we go to the elections, and then they will say, the nation said he want this. Now they want to campaign with us in this dialogue for in future when we go to the election. So we cannot agree on that. But the fact is, we need to remove them. We're going to vote them out. Dialogue is not necessary.
Okay, and here's the last one. One comment saying from a listener, from you, we need a leader like Donald Trump. Oh my goodness. Let's end the show rather. We'll do it again tomorrow. Thanks for listening to the National Pulse. Here's Greg Host with the news at 6.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Scores of learners rushed to hospital and traditional healer sentenced in the northwest. Good evening. More than 70 learners from an agricultural school at Ngaleni in the Eastern Cape have been rushed to hospital due to food poisoning. Provincial Health Department spokesperson Siyanda Manana says some learners are on drips and those who were in a serious condition were transported by a helicopter to hospital. The Northern Cape Education Department has placed the teacher on precautionary suspension